All right, good morning, everybody. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 8:30. This is the Traffic Advisory Committee meeting for October 21st, 2022 for the town of Wakefield. Just a reminder that the meeting is being audio and video recorded, as well as a live transcript, which I am going to enable now for closed caption. So if you could keep your mics muted unless you're speaking, and try to speak as clearly as possible so that transcription can be as accurate as possible. And take attendance. I have Bill Renault, Steve Mayo, Dan and Lois Benjamin, Joe Conway, Matt Keeley. I believe John Connors was not able to make it to this meeting today. Anybody that I've missed? All right. Dan, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Just take yourself off mute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dan. Item number 4 is public engagement. Any members of the public that wish to address Traffic Advisory Committee on a topic that isn't part of the agenda can raise their hand. We'll allow you a minute or two to make any comments. If you have comments that have to do with an agenda item, I would ask that you keep those to the agenda item when we discuss it. Any members of the public have anything they would like to address to Traffic Advisory at this time? Had a few more people join. We're doing item number 4, public engagement. If anybody has anything for Traffic Advisory that is not related to an agenda item.
I just want to make sure that I'm on the agenda. I'm not sure I have an issue at Rochelle Drive.
Yes, yep, you are actually the very next item. So we'll discuss that in just a minute. Thank you.
Morning. Done, please. Thanks.
Hi, my name's Julianne Orsino. I'd like to talk about school zones.
Okay, Julianne, could you just give us your address?
Sure, it's 25 Summer Street.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
I know this is something that's been a topic of conversation, and just want to give my support to actually designating and adding the signage and safety measures around the Galvin Middle School. I think as we're all seeing that Wakefield's growing dramatically, and as you have more folks, the traffic is going to impact the traffic, of course, you all know. And it just seems like this is a win-win for everyone to actually designate around the Galvin as a school zone and add the appropriate signage and lighting. I personally have seen one individual, I won't say hit, but brushed, and the police officer who's out front, it does an amazing job, and watched him the other day have to literally step in front of a car to stop them. And you're never going to stop that behavior, but being able to let folks know that the speed limit's 20 and that kids actually are crossing, I think it goes a long way.
Thank you for that. Our town engineer, Bill Renault, has been working on getting enhanced signage for all of our schools, upgrading missing signage and things like that. He's got a concept that's approved. And Bill, maybe you want to speak on that briefly.
Yeah, that's accurate, Joe. So we're in the process now of just figuring out the locations of all of the signage to try to, essentially what I'm trying to do is to make the school zone as long as possible so that the reduced speed could be further up from the schools. So we're working on that, and I'm hoping to deploy it here in the fall at some point.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. All right, last call for public engagement before we continue on to the next agenda item. All right, Pamela, we have item number 5, parking restrictions on Rochelle Drive, which is a request from a resident to have the current no parking 4 p.m. to 9 a.m. restriction reviewed.
Yes, correct. I was wondering, and I talked to Mr. Mayo about it, that I was wondering why that was put into place in the first place. We have been, well, we meaning residents of Salem Street, which it abuts, have been verbally assaulted by residents of Rochelle Drive, verbally, only verbally, for parking there, for any guests we might have had parking there, actually at any time, especially between 4 and 9. Even if we are maybe, just switching cars out of the driveway and we're parked there for 5 minutes, we get called out on it. And it's really unnecessary, I feel.
So I can tell you that that restriction's been in place for quite some time, but I don't have the actual traffic advisory minutes just yet because it was probably well over a decade ago. The Google Street View has it back to, I think, 2007 that that signage was there. I suspect it was probably as a result of some multifamilies in the Salem Street area having too many vehicles and started to clog up that street there that that restriction would be in place.
Okay.
But I can't confirm that without looking at the actual notes. So
Okay.
that would be my guess because it's kind of a small side street, and typically that's what happens with overflow parking is it starts to clog up side streets and create accessibility issues. But without going back to the notes, I wouldn't be able to give you a kind of a definitive answer on where that originated from. So that's something that I'm still working on, trying to go back through the archives to see.
I actually don't remember it being a problem. And I've lived in our house right on Salem Street since 1998.
Yep.
So I don't really.
Yeah, all I
that.
can tell you is since 07 when the Street View actually started in that area, the signage was there. But I can only kind of surmise why it was put in place. So what I would do at this point is I'll get back to you when I find anything out as far as details on why it was placed there and give you a little more perspective on that. And if at that point you want to move forward with trying to amend that in some way, we have a process for that. I can link you up to that process and we can go from there.
I would like that information. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good. Anything else you have for us?
No, it's just, it's just difficult because if we have a person come over, we can't park on Salem Street. We've been ticketed for parking in front of my home on Salem Street.
Yeah, Salem Street's always been a challenge, and
Yeah, it is. It's a busy street. Yeah.
No doubt. All right, we'll look into that.
Thank you for your time.
No problem. All right, item number 6 is a handicap parking space request on Chestnut Street. This was reviewed by the Disability Commission, and they recommend a handicap parking space be installed near 26 Chestnut Street. I think it definitely makes sense there, but Bill, you want to have a couple minutes on that?
I don't think there's much really to add. It's in front of a, kind of a multi-unit development, and we don't have any handicap parking on that whole block. So this seems like a pretty straightforward approval.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the handicap parking space in front of or in the area of 26 Chestnut Street. Second by Bill. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed?
All right, so the handicap parking space will be installed in the area of 26 Chestnut Street. Thank you for that. Item number 7 is 198 Albion Street, a new proposed development. We have a traffic assessment to review for a mixed-use development there.
John, I think you're on mute. If John, you're the one taking it over.
I think Brian was going to start, but He seems to be, he's there.
He's blacked out.
John, do you have a presentation you want me to make you the co-host on, or Brian?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so I'll make you the co-host so we can do that.
Yeah, Lieutenant, I also have a couple slides for the.
Is this,
for the
are you
traffic
guys already
control.
on 198 Albion?
We are. We've
Yeah.
been
Oh.
moving. That's
Sorry about that.
okay.
To do a little quick errand, so I apologize. So if I may, for the record, Lieutenant Anderson, Brian McGrail, on behalf of 198 Albion Street. With me today is John Over from Hayes Engineering, also Scott Thornton, and also the principal of the entity, Giancarlo Tiberi. 198 Albion Street, I think probably the best way, if I can share my screen, to familiarize the committee with the location. Able to see that?
Yep.
Great. So 198 Albion Street is Lake Street Laundromat, which has now been closed for some time, was purchased by Giancarlo. And what he's proposing here is a mixed-use project that will include residential and retail or service establishment or some type of eatery. The project is currently pending before the Board of Appeals. The number of units that are being proposed here are 10, and somewhat of a modest development for the lot. Under our density allowances, he could actually do up to 26 units. But he decided that he wanted to, really kind of focus on the quality of the units, some of the size of the units, and amenities. So it's really kind of undersized from a density perspective. And Giancarlo has a lot of experience. He's developed a number of properties in the North End. And this building, I'm going to show you some of the architectural, even though just to kind of give you some context of what is being proposed here before we get into the details of the site plan. So I'll do that fairly quickly. You able to see?
Yep, we have it.
Great. Okay. Thank you. So this is really the quality building that he is proposing. As I've mentioned, it's before the Board of Appeals now. I think the Board of Appeals hearings have, in my mind, gone very well. They like this building a lot. They like the style. As I've mentioned, Giancarlo has a lot of experience in Boston, so he's trying to match the brick in the area. This building will be all brick all the way around, so there won't be any, kind of fake sides to the building, if you will. I think it would sit very well on the corner, and just kind of gives a look at it. This is from the Albion Street side, so I'll give you a little bit of a look at the nighttime on it, and then some of the materials. So what I'm going to do, John, do you want to put up your site plan and kind of walk the board through the site plan? There is a little bit of a benefit here that for the laundromat, there's a number of curb cuts. We'll be closing one of those up to kind of control the traffic flow a little bit more than what's happening at the site or has happened at the site in the past. So I think John can walk you through the site plan, and then Scott can talk about traffic, which I'm sure you're most interested in.
Good morning, John Ogren, Hayes Engineering. What I have up on my screen, this is existing conditions plan. You can see the laundromat. You can also see that majority of the existing lot is basically paved. There's parking out in front, and then there's a fenced in area in the rear. This property is about just over 15,000 square feet. It resides in both the business and the industrial zones. Majority of it's in industry is in business zone. There is a small portion, small corner that's industrial. As far as the existing site access, there is kind of a shared access with a butter here. There's another curb cut here on Albion Street, and then there's another curb cut down here on Lake Street. We'll go through how we're going to change those. So that's basically the existing, what we're proposing, as Brian said, proposed building kind of up on the corner, 10 residents with some commercial on the first floor. We're proposing to do from a curb cut standpoint is we're going to continue to utilize this existing curb cut on Albion Street. We're going to be closing off this second access on Albion Street, and then we're going to keep the access on Lake Street, but we are going to be narrowing down that curb cut. Traffic flow, basically it's one way through the site. So it's one way coming in off of Albion Street and exiting off of Lake Street. We have parking off of that entrance. We have a total of 17 parking spaces. I believe required was 16, yeah, 16 spaces. I'll go over that in a second. So we have some parking on the entranceway here. There's some parking in this rear portion, parallel space here, and then there is actually parking spaces under the building for this portion of the building. In terms of the parking itself, there is a parking calculations. Get this over here. The two components are the commercial portion, and in the zoning under section 190.36.b.3, there's an exemption for smaller establishments. If it basically results in less than 4 parking spaces, there is no parking required. We have about 8,000 square feet of retail, which calculates out to about 3 spaces, which is less than the 4. So no spaces would be required for that. Looking at the multifamily, is 1.5 spaces per dwelling unit, and 10 units would be 15 spaces. So I'm sorry, I guess I misspoke. Required would be 15. We're proposing to have 17 total parking spaces. One of them will be handicap accessible. We also have a note too that one of them will be basically an EV charger. We'll have an EV charger. I think we're looking probably toward this space, but we haven't really decided that. The only thing in terms of traffic and flow else I would like to add as far as the site, in discussion with the ZBA, they did request that we look to see if we can add another parking space, and it looks like we may be able to, with some small tweaks, sliding this forward. We'd still have about 10 feet from the back edge of the sidewalk. We might be able to get another parallel parking space in there, which would bring our total up to 18. And I just one other thing is there is existing sidewalks all along basically the frontage of this property. I can answer any questions, or I can go over to Scott.
Yeah, I'd just like to add real quick, the makeup of the units is there's actually 8 1-bedroom units and 2 2-bedroom units that are being proposed.
All right, what would visitor parking look like? So are these assigned spaces or?
Usually work, you know, sometimes the zoning board will want that, sometimes they won't. So we haven't really gotten that far with them, Lieutenant, on how they're gonna want that. I mean, if you wanted to make a recommendation, I'm sure they would entertain it.
So my only concern is that there's time restricted parking on Albion Street, and there's really none in the Lake Street area. That's all restricted there. So there's not a whole lot of opportunity for overflow for visitors and things like that. So as long as that's a consideration.
I mean, I think piggybacking on that piece, though, I mean, just to make sure that the retail that's proposed is going to work. You know, I know that you can go after the exemption for, you know, under the 4 units, but I mean, I don't know how you have the parking to be supported. Would that be on the street? Is that the intent?
Yeah, that, but I mean, they're really looking at that. This is, you know, right within the railroad. And, you know, it's probably gonna be, you've got a lot of residential that's gone in there and it is going to be going in there. So it's really gonna be a lot of foot traffic that's gonna service that retail bill. It's not gonna be a huge retail. It's gonna be under 1,000 square feet.
Now, are these condos or are these rentals?
The intent at this point is rentals.
Okay.
Is that correct, Giancarlo? You're there, just to confirm.
Yes, that's correct.
So Brian, what do you envision going in there for retail, and there's going to be what, a cafe there?
Maybe, you know, we talked about that with the board. You know, it could be, you know, I mean, you know, as an example, the one on the Ray Lawton project, which is near the junction near Dunkin' Donuts, that small retail, that's under 1,000 square feet. He ended up putting a barber shop in there, which is phenomenal.
Okay.
I mean, the guy's incredibly successful in serving a need for, you know, a lot of people with minimal parking effect because he has 1 or 2 customers at a time. So I think what Giancarlo is thinking here is, you know, yeah, like some type of cafe where you might be able to get a sandwich or a cup of coffee that will kind of work with the train. Really would be great for the neighborhood. But, you know, that's going to have to kind of evolve as the project goes on.
I mean, is there an opportunity to do potentially tandem spaces in the bottom left-hand corner?
Over in this area?
Yeah. I mean, that could get, because if you have a couple of 2 bedrooms, right, that would at least get you a couple of spaces, and then the one that they're talking about with the ZBA to add, that would get you right to your 3, right?
Yeah, we could certainly look at that.
Right. Or even adding one, and you could, looks like you can also add one towards the street too, right? With the main entrances.
Yeah, we were trying to keep it, you know, initially we were trying to keep the, you know, there's a requirement for 15 feet off of the right of way, the parking, but obviously with our sliding this forward, we're not going to be in that. So we could look at the potential of adding another one here too.
I mean, I think if you got the extra 4 spaces, I'd feel very comfortable with this, personally.
Yeah, I would agree, Bill. A few more spaces would definitely help, and I think as long as the developer understands that there's time restricted parking on Albion Street, which would obviously help the retail and you know, restaurant end of things. But as far as overflow parking, there's really no opportunity for that on street. And as you get into the neighborhoods off of Albion Street, that's all time restricted or exempt by resident permit, and that would be for residents of those streets, Cedar and the like. And it would not be available to residents of this or any multifamily. So even though we have some permitting in the area for those side streets, those are not available for residents of other streets. So that would just be my little asterisk there. But a few more spaces, I would be comfortable with this. It seems like it's fairly low impact overall.
Can someone just clarify on the total number of parking spaces? I think the traffic study said 1 space would be designated for the retail. I thought when you showed it earlier, it said 0 for the retail.
No, I was just, those were the calculations for, based on the zoning would end up being 0 because we were less than the 4.
Right, but I'm just saying the traffic study says 1 would be dedicated to the retail.
Yeah, we can certainly do that because the requirement for the multifamily dwellings is 16, that we have 17 total spaces.
Yeah, and that would provide whoever's working in the retail a place to park.
Right. Yeah. So I think if you were to add that space towards Albion Street, have that as retail space that provides at least a spot for folks to come, and then you can, and then you can park it, you know, at night, you know, do like a shared parking model, that definitely works. just adding the other spaces and the tandems below, and then you meet your parking count. And I think just the site as a whole will operate a ton better.
Yeah, so potentially add one here, add one here,
And then the bottom left-hand corner is tandems.
and
Even if they're smaller spaces, you know, if you go with the compact or something, that you're just adding spaces so people have places to park. You know, because you have a couple of 2 bedrooms, right? Is that what you said?
This bill,
Yeah. So I mean that you could just have the 2 bedrooms have those tandem spaces.
I like that idea. I mean, you know, it would be helpful if you would reference that to the zoning board.
Yep. Yeah. Then we'll add that to our next comment letter.
All right, anybody else from traffic advisory on this development?
Can I add one?
Go, Dan.
We're seeing more and more developments in Wakefield and more people that ride bicycles and motor scooters. And is it possible to have some kind of like a bike rack on this? Or am I speaking out of term as far as, I know we have one level 2 EV charging station, and that's great to see that. But I think more and more we're seeing more bicycles and stuff, and just have a bike rack somehow next to the parking.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's a good point.
I think we make those as a recommendation as well. But just as a heads up, I do think that this building is very it's a great looking building. So you know, thank you for the proposal. I think the aesthetic is tremendous.
Yeah, it definitely cleans up that area. It's nice.
Ties in well with Harvard Mills too.
All right, anybody else from traffic advisory have any comments or questions? Any members of the public have any comments or questions? We'll give about a minute for that.
sorry, Joe, I did have one other question just about trash pickup.
Sure.
Just wondering where that's happening.
I believe the trash is inside the building. So it'd be something that's wheeled out and picked up.
It's along those lines. What I forgot to ask was about, and it's not really traffic related, but I'll put my police hat on for a minute. Secure package room or delivery, where's that going to be? Or is that part of the plans?
The common area, utility room on the first floor.
How about cameras? Has that been considered?
Giancarlo, you want to touch base on that? What's your thoughts on cameras?
Yeah, I would. Hi, Giancarlo. Yeah, I would say so. Obviously, we do that on a lot of our other developments as well. Obviously, resident safety for us is number one. In addition to being a developer, we own a property management company as well. So we deal with a lot of the packages and whatnot. And we have some secure entry systems that, you know, an Amazon and whatnot has a unique code that they can enter the building and leave packages and store them correctly instead of just leaving them, you know, outside. So that's definitely safety is a priority, and definitely cameras is something we're going to look into as well. Absolutely.
Okay. No, I know it's not traffic related, but you know, anytime we look at these developments, you know, from a police perspective, those are two kind of easy things that can be done to,
Yeah.
You know, to help us and help the residents too.
Absolutely. I appreciate that and understand completely.
All right. Brian, what else do you have for us on this?
The only thing I'll ask is, where, you know, the zoning board is at the point of, I think we're all trying to advance this. So where it seems that the comments might be fairly straightforward from the TAC. Maybe I'd ask Bill Renault, is it possible that you could send a memo to them by Wednesday for their meeting Wednesday night on this stuff, so we can have discussions with them on what you're requesting?
Yeah, I think that sounds reasonable.
You know, just kind of your bullet.
What do you think, Matt? You're the one who usually writes them, so.
You can't do it today, but if we can get it to them by Wednesday, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think that sounds reasonable. Are you going to make the revisions based on what we talked about from the layout?
Yeah,
Can
we'll
you
make
get
some.
that- Can we get that by like say Monday or Tuesday?
John, you can do that, right?
Yep.
I mean, because if that's on it, I mean, if you add all these things, all the comments are addressed from here. So I don't think that we would basically just be saying the TAC has no comments on the project. That's a new one for us usually.
Well, I think if you could, the things that you've asked for, like the, the dedicated retail, the tandem spaces. If you could just put that in your memo to them, just a quick memo, because that's gonna, we show it on the plan, it will help us with them that you wanted that.
Sure.
Because they are gonna be waivers from them to do that tandem parking.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
I'll
it
basically
really
just
makes, it
summarize the
really,
note.
I'm sorry.
I'll basically just summarize the questions and answers that we went through here.
All right, sounds good. If there's nothing further, Attorney McGrill, we're going to move on to item number 8.
I got that too.
Yes,
All
Thank
right,
you all very much.
one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item number 8 is 184 Water Street, new proposed development, and we have another traffic assessment review for a proposed mixed use there.
Yep. Again, Attorney Brian McGrail representing the applicant on this one. Also with me on this again is Scott Thornton. And also so Barrio Fincchetti is here. He is the developer on this project. And also we have Carlton Quinn from Allen and Major. And this project, as you have mentioned, is located at 184 Water Street. It's really a cleanup project. I'm going to share my screen again, if I may. This is currently also before the Zoning Board of Appeals. I'm going to kind of go through just a really quick PowerPoint to introduce you to the project. This is a rendering of what the project will look like. We've had some changes. This is kind of the first presentation, but the changes are small as far as it might be concerned for the TAC. So this is 184 Water Street. It abuts Nassau Playground across the street from Shelmar Glass. It gives you an idea. To your patience. You were able to see that?
Yeah.
Great. So it's a mixed-use development, small retail in the first floor. There's only a total of 7 residential units here. This is a real, as I mentioned, it's kind of a cleanup opportunity for the site. This is what's going on at the site now. It's currently a mixed use. You have auto repair, and then you have some residential units up above that are taking place. But as you can see, the property is in a significant state of disrepair. It's on an 8,597 square foot lot at the corner of Melbourne and Water Street. It's kind of a, for lack of a better term, it's like a parking graveyard right now with the auto repair. There's always cars, as you can see, just kind of scattered all over. It's kind of disconnected from the streetscape. There's 3 curb cuts that are very large, 2 on Water Street and 1 on Melbourne Street. It's got a lot of deferred maintenance issues, as you can see. There's contamination on the site from that has to be dealt with. There's underground storage tanks and environmental cleanup that will take place as far as this project. So the way we're looking at this project is presents an opportunity to better serve the neighborhood. It's going to create affordable housing because these units are exempt, but this will have an affordable housing component as required by our bylaw. And it's going to obviously improve the curb appeal. This gives you an idea of kind of the front of the property. This is from the kind of the Shaw's loading area, the back of the building. And this is as you are pulling in off of Water Street, heading towards the playground, current status of the property. So as far as the existing conditions go, it's relatively flat, but it's kind of got an odd shape. And there's some encroachments into Melvin Street. You can see that here. I've mentioned there's 3 curb cuts. There's very poor pedestrian access along Melvin and Water Street. It's disconnected. So if you go back to these pictures, you will see there's no, whoops, sorry about that. There's no sidewalk connection going down. So, you know, all the kids that go to the playground, the Little League, is kind of, it's not the safest situation because there's no sidewalk here. And we're gonna improve that. This gives you an idea of the location. These trees really don't exist anymore. A lot of them have been taken down. If you go down there and take a look at it, quite a while ago, this is kind of an old overview shot. As far as the neighborhood goes, it's a mix of business and residential use on the neighborhood. It's zoned industrial. As you know, we've got the bowling alley, the grocery store, there's restaurants, there's self-storage. This is kind of the little lot, as you can see, and this is Melvin Street, and this is the Nassau Playground. So that's just kind of a little bit of a lot that sits off on its own. Interestingly, this property is along what's referred to as Wakefield Walks, the East Side Walking Loop. It close proximity to the train. It's only 0.7 miles, so it's about a 14-minute walk from the train station. And as I mentioned, we're going to improve that walking loop with a lot of sidewalk improvements, etc. Just kind of a shot from the other side of the street. As I've mentioned, there are already 3-story mixed-use properties along Water Street. This is a three-story building as well that's being proposed. And this is the building. It's in the process of being refined through the Board of Appeals process, but you know, I don't think anything's really going to significantly change. One thing that we're doing is we're anticipating this might be a cafe. We had input from some of the neighbors during the process that they would like to see that. Would probably work well with the Little League field behind it. And so we're looking at making this kind of landscaped area portion here will probably end up being an outdoor patio with some tables that people can sit outside. It mentioned it's going to be a 3-story project, a 3-story project with 7 residential units and 1 retail unit. One of the units will be affordable, as I've mentioned, and go to the housing inventory of the town. This is just kind of the architecture, which I'll go through pretty quickly. And I'm going to hand it over. I just kind of want to give you an idea on the project. I'm going to hand it over to, I guess, to Carlton. Do you want to bring up your site plan maybe and kind of show the board the improvements that we're proposing, if you could, on the sidewalks and the pedestrian connections?
Sure, just one second.
You know, while you do that, I just wanted to kind of, you know, highlight. So we're going to have a lot of infrastructure upgrades with pedestrian walkways leading to the field. 3 disjointed curb cuts are going to be replaced to manage traffic. Building encroachment will be taken out. We're going to add an affordable unit. And obviously a small business space, and the environmental issues on the property are going to be remediated. And obviously the parking graveyard is going to be eliminated as well. So Carlton, it's all yours.
I think I just need to be allowed to share.
If you can, I got off, so try again.
It says a host disabled participant screen share. Oh, there it goes.
Now,
See it now?
yep, we have it.
Okay. As Brian alluded to, we're going to provide a concrete sidewalk coming around here, connecting Water Street down to Melvin Street, all across the front of the property. Removing all curb cuts from Water Street, as that was kind of an open parking area. Concrete sidewalks, granite curbs, ADA access ramp. The parking in the back, we have 22-foot drive aisle. We're going to have 4 garage parking stalls, and 7 surface parking stalls, and 2 EV stations on the lot. The dumpster will be provided a little curb cut here to facilitate the pickups. And that's generally it. I know we have provided this to the ZBA that there's a lot of on-street parking allowed in this area also. So we have adequate parking stalls. We have, I think, just under 1,000 square feet of retail, which requires no spaces. 7 2-bedroom units requiring 1.5 spaces each, which require 11 stalls, which is what we provided.
It's interesting. There's such optimism from some of the abutters on this, especially in the Cadillo Industrial Park, that really like this project, that they've said to us, any help you need with parking, you know, at night or whatever, we've got plenty of parking that we're happy to cooperate with and help out for overflow. And plus, obviously, there's overflow parking in the Solid Playground at nighttime too.
All right, any questions from TAC members?
I had one question related to the layout of the driveway. So in between the main driveway and the access for the trash, there's some curb space there. Would parking be restricted in that one little stretch there? I'm not sure if it's long enough for an on-street space, but I just imagine people might try to use it for parking.
Yeah, that wouldn't be big enough for a car to park there without restricting the access to those 2 items. So we need to restrict parking in that location.
Yeah, I just want to make sure. I couldn't tell on the scale if a car could fit there.
Lieutenant Anderson, this is Julie Smith Galvin. Sorry, I'm off camera. I would just recommend or have people look into bike racks around there. There's going to be a lot of kids come between the schools and go to Shaw's along that way. And if there's a cafe there, I think it's going to be a huge attraction for people who are not in cars. So maybe the town can work with the developer and put bike racks there for both Nacella and for this space.
I agree, Brian. What do you think of that? Maybe not only a bike rack for the building itself, but they could construct one for the field.
Yeah, I think, is Savario still on? I know we had a doctor's appointment. I don't think that will be a
Hey.
problem. Are you there, Savario?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, everyone. I'm calling in from the road here because I've got a medical appointment this morning
No
that
problem.
conflicted with the hearing. But I don't know that we have the space. I know Carlton and I briefly discussed it, but as I was sitting here thinking, just a thought. I don't know if Nacella has a bike rack already, but perhaps maybe we could coordinate with engineering to donate a bike rack and install it during the process. I don't know if that would be helpful at all. But if we have space on the site and Carlton can find a spot for it, I'm more than happy to do it. But I'm almost wondering if maybe providing one at the park would be maybe just as helpful or more helpful. I don't know, just a thought.
That would be awesome. I think we definitely talk about that.
Yeah, we'd be supportive of that.
Awesome. Yeah, great. Carlton, do you think there is any space, or should we just focus on maybe doing something in Nacella for the community?
I don't think there's any space without basically taking away additional landscaping. And I think the landscaping we have is required. So we could certainly provide something just to the side here on Nacella, or if they had a better location, we could take a look at it. And I guess how many bike racks would they be looking for? Are they looking for us to provide something?
Can work that out with engineering. I think the suggestion is a good suggestion, because there is a lot of people on bikes with kids going to the games and using the park. And then that will probably use the cafe. So I think we can work out what the proper size bike rack would be that we would donate, where it would be located. And, basically, Bill, however you want to do it, if you want to figure out what the cost is, it could be a condition of a financial contribution for that purpose. And then you.
Sure. Yeah. Let me, I'll talk internally with my folks here.
And then the town can determine how you want to handle it. But I think it's a great idea, and I think it will be a benefit to the area and to the project too.
Great.
I agree. Joe Conway, you had something?
No, Counselor Smith Galvin actually stole my idea, so I'm good.
Just let me know. I'll mute it for the next one, Joe.
Oh, I'm good.
All right. All right. Anybody else from TAC have anything on this development?
I had one more on the access. The traffic study had site distance measurements for stopping site distance on Melvin, but not intersection site distance from the driveway. And just one of the renderings looked like there was some landscaping, like tall grasses. I would just want to make sure that the sight line towards the park remains clear. Just because there's gonna be a lot of people coming and going from the baseball field, as well as, you know, kids maybe on bikes. So just want to make sure that that sight line looking to the north is clear.
Concerned about this stuff here?
Yeah. Just want to make sure that the landscaping isn't going to be something that obstructs that sight line.
It's fine. There's also, Savara, are you there still?
Yeah, I was gonna say, just one note to keep in mind, since that version of the rendering you've got there, given feedback from some of the abutters and the interest in having a cafe, we actually proposed during the last CBA hearing, converting that landscaped area on the immediate corner there into a outdoor seating area, patio. So we've gone ahead and updated our plans. Carlton's team has done that. So we'll present, I guess, we presented, basically a draft version during the last hearing, but we'll formalize that during the next hearing. So you won't have any landscaping there. You will have an 18-inch tall wall. We just put like a small decorative wall up just to kind of enclose the patio area, just kind of define it a little bit better. So there will be that small wall, but it won't be any taller than 18 inches.
Got that up on the screen now, Severio. You guys can see that.
Okay. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Can we make sure that that's like a porous paver? Is that doable? Would you have an issue with that?
I'm sorry, say that one more time. A what?
To do that in a porous paver as opposed to a standard, either concrete or just paver patio?
Yep. Yeah, that's actually what we proposed during the last hearing. It's actually a Teco block. It's from the Linnea collection. I can send you that offline.
I've already used it. I know it. So that's the one.
Okay, perfect.
So
perfect. Yeah. Awesome.
Can you also address, because you've got Bill Renault on here now, we talked about doing some landscaping between our building and the park.
It's
kind of like an old chain link fence there, Bill, that's, in kind of a state of disrepair, and, as part of this to kind of spruce up the park in the neighborhood. Severio has a desire to kind of do some landscaping and clean that up a little bit. Go ahead, Severio.
Yeah, so we, in our rendering, our rendering company took a little bit of creative liberty and saw that there was vines in the existing Google imagery. So they actually put in hedges, but in talking with Carlton's landscaping team, it doesn't seem like it's going to be really realistic to do like a managed vine system. I looked into a few and I was going to let the ZBA know, because Jim McBain had mentioned, he kind of liked the design. And if it's something that we could consider, we did. And we actually went out to a couple of vendors. The cost is astronomical for 80 linear feet. It's going to be like $100 grand by the time we finished, we just can't absorb that kind of cost.
That seems like a great amenity, no?
Right. Yeah. Literally a vine wall, it's crazy. So we're now proposing a tan colored fence. We will have, we're going to clean it up obviously, but we're wondering is, that fence, we're not sure who owns it, or if it's, I guess, Wakefield's or the previous owners. We're wondering if everyone's amenable to us just removing the chain link fence and replacing it with our vinyl fence.
It doesn't jump out at me as an issue. So.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's just a typical playground fence, Bill. It's kind of rusty and in state of disrepair, and no one's fault. Time has kind of passed it by. So at the same time, it will clean it up and make it safer for the park and for the project.
That would be on your property though, right? So it's not on town property?
Yep, exactly. Yeah, we would just remove, I don't know exactly where the fence line is, and Carlton could probably speak better to that, but I don't know who even.
Yeah, it's right in this area.
Yeah, it kind of it's mostly on our property, just kind of weaves in and out of the property line. It's right on the property line.
I don't see an issue at all. It sounds good to me. As long as ZBA is on board with it.
Brian.
Okay. Yep. Awesome.
Joe Conway, Mr. Mayo.
This is Joe. can we, when you guys get an idea, can you just make sure you shoot that to us? Because there's actually two other sections of chain link to the sides of that fieldstone wall. I think to dress the whole thing up, we might be interested in seeing what you go with, and if we could do something similar to kind of dress up the frontage to Water Street there. So whenever you get that, if you can just shoot it to us, I can talk to Dennis and Bill and go from there. Maybe we'll clean up the whole thing while we're at it.
Yeah, that's fine. We'll have, this kind of shows you that chain, see it there going along the side of the building?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
behind that Isuzu there, we actually have like 4 feet there, 4 feet to the other side, just kind of connecting the infills. So we'd probably be interested in cleaning those sections up too, so we don't, have the beautiful building there and then leave 8 feet of the old, past its time fence.
Severo, we can work with the town on that, right?
We're talking about what that 4-foot section that connects at the corner of Water to the stone wall, right? To that fieldstone wall.
Exactly. So there's a little piece there, and I think the other side of the stone wall between the next to butter, which is total temperature controlled, it might be a 6-foot section in there.
Yep, I see it.
It's essentially 2 extra sections of fence, but I'd hate to see it all get uniform and nice looking, and we leave those in place.
Yep, we can definitely do that.
We'll take care of that, Joe.
Thank you.
I just volunteered for Severio to do that work.
Yeah, I was gonna do it myself, but I'm like, guys, you're gonna, if he was sitting next to me, he'd kick me under the table or something,
That's, I mean, that's gonna dress up the whole area much better than having that old chain link.
Yep, for sure. Happy to do it.
Mr. Mayor, you had your.
Yes, thank you, Lieutenant. I just want to say, that love the way that whole corridor is being improved over the years, and with the new ambulance bay on the other side there of the opening, that's really going to look a lot more inviting than it did before. And to back up Councilor Smith Galvin on this, this not only will draw people from the high school coming down Water Street, but the rail to trail, which is just going to be on the other side of Shaw's in the bowling alley, you will get riders that will come down there and take advantage of the cafe. So I think whatever we can do, Joe, for bike racks, both Joes for bike racks, Bill in the area, we should work with the developer on. That'll really be great. So thank you. Great presentation.
Yeah, the bike racks will be great. We'll work that out with Bill Renault and figure it out.
Dan and Lois.
Yeah, definitely the bike racks, definitely for that. But this might be a question for maybe Bill Renault, but what's the signage in that area? Does it say slow children or playground or something? I noticed there's 2 sidewalks that go across the street, but could we increase the signage somehow there?
Yeah, I think that makes sense, but yeah, I'm not familiar on what the signage that's there right now, so
Yeah.
But we can take a look at that.
With the cafe going in there, I think that's going to be great because kids are going to be playing baseball or something in the 2 fields behind there. And also a parent's going to go and grab a cup of coffee. But I think it's going to be great, that little cafe there.
Hey, Brian, if they find any Dodger balls, can I get one? There's a lot of Little League balls in that on that site somewhere, probably still buried from Little League. So.
All right, anybody else from TAC on this agenda item? Do we have any members of the public that wish to comment?
Yes, Lieutenant Anderson, if I could ask a question and make a comment.
Sure, just your name and address, please.
Yep, my name is Kathleen Toohey. I live at 8 Wiley Place.
Thank you.
Just because I'm not great with architectural renderings, where is the seating? Is that on the patio seating? Is that on the Water Street side or is that on the Melvin Street side?
On the corner. I can bring it up for you. Are you able to see the screen?
Yes.
Not yet. I'm going to bring it up once let me do that for you.
Looks like Water Street.
Right here in the corner.
So that's, the seating is actually really kind of along Water Street, so that if, the way I'm looking at it, that little retaining wall is essentially on top of the curb. And then you have tables and chairs, and then the sidewalk will run between the building and the tables and chairs.
Sidewalk is outside the wall, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the sidewalk, you would walk around it, and then there's gonna be a sidewalk installed going down to Melvin Street,
Okay.
going down Melvin Street towards the park.
Yeah, none of
Alright.
that patio will be in the public way, and we're going to upgrade basically that entire sidewalk walkway wrapping around the entirety of the lot. So we'll make all those improvements. So rather than right now where it's all disconnected and there's all these different means of access to the lot, we'll actually connect everything so it'll be a seamless transition.
I can
Okay,
share a
yeah.
site plan of the seating if you want, the patio.
Oh, you
That's
can.
fine. I
come-
mean,
Go ahead.
what I was gonna say, what you just explained makes a lot more sense. I just couldn't tell sort of what the orientation was there.
This might help. you.
Yeah,
Yeah. this
yeah,
is-
it'll be great for someone like yourself.
Oh,
If you're
okay.
walking over from Wiley, you'll be able to just cross the street and then make your way right around to Nazella.
Okay. And
Yeah,
then,
Oh,
sorry,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
No, you please.
I was gonna move on. There was discussion about the signage there. I've actually already submitted a comment or request to the DPW. The crosswalk that was put in on Water Street that goes in between the stone wall there to the playground. The crosswalk was repainted and the curb cutouts were done, but there is no signage for that crosswalk at the current time. So definitely.
Looks like we forgot that when we reconstructed it, so we'll add that in.
That would be great, because there are a lot of kids that I see that go in and out of the park, both on foot and on bike, that try to use that crosswalk, and it can definitely be a challenge. The crosswalk is also missing from the documents that were provided as part of the traffic study that show where there's potential parking on Water Street. And another recommendation on part of Safe Streets Wakefield would also be to block parking on either side of the crosswalk, just to improve visibility and safety for,
Is
you know,
there-
especially kids, but any pedestrians now, if you're going to increase crossing there to get to this building and cafe, that would be great to have a little more buffer zone around the crosswalk.
All right, thank you very much. Anybody else from the
I
public?
just wanted to show Lieutenant, so this is the fence, Joe, that you're talking about, right? Joe Conway?
Yep.
That
Yeah,
little
and there's
piece,
another-
yeah, and there's another one over here.
Yep.
But you can kind of see what a mess that whole area is right now, so we'll get that cleaned up. And then you can see the curb openings that, you know, it's really not safe for kids walking to the park because it's just driveway cuts everywhere. And then even more importantly, is you can see here, when you go down, you know, kids that are going to the playground coming from the Montrose Ave side, they have really, if they don't go in the front gate, they've got no way to walk safely down to the park. So all this will be now sidewalk going down. So I think it's gonna be a huge improvement and a huge safety improvement for the park.
Brian, can you go back to the crosswalk on, is that the crosswalk that Kathleen's
Yep.
talking about?
Uh,
The other, I think it's on the other
It's not
side.
shown on that plan. It's not shown.
Oh, it's not on here. This is
No,
the old one. Okay.
No, yeah.
I see this on the street.
There's one, there's one.
There's
if
one
you-
right there, Julie.
No, that's not the one we're talking about. We moved that
Oh, okay.
Okay.
basically to the entrance of the park.
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah, is when we reconstructed it. So
Now it's
that's-
here, Bill?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and if we, signage is definitely important there. If we have any of the blinking signs, this might be a high use area for it. Lieutenant Anderson, just to think about.
It's definitely a good one.
Okay.
So we think and develop a contribution for rapid flashing beacon.
I would say so, yeah. Knowing that crosswalk was moved there and they could definitely use it. I think that's a
Win-win.
good point there.
Are we comfortable with that, Brian?
I can't hear you, Bill. What did you say?
Are you comfortable with a flashing beacon and
Um,
funding a flashing beacon at that location?
Severio. Severio, are you there? Severio?
Sorry, yep, I'm here. Yep, sorry. I'm sorry, what was the question? If we're on with what? My
You're
service
asking,
is cutting out.
go ahead, Bill, why don't you ask?
Yeah, so we're asking for a rapid flashing beacon at the crosswalk to the playground, or a developer contribution for that, and we can install it.
Yeah, I think a contribution would be fine on our end. Maybe we can talk offline about that and the other items and figure out what the total is.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, I think it'd be
Makes a
easier
lot
for
of
you.
sense.
I think it'd be easier for you to do it, Bill. We just contributed for that. Would that make
Yeah,
sense?
that's no problem. We don't have an issue with that. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want me
We
in the
could do-
way.
Yeah, we could do that in lieu of the typical traffic payment for each of these developments.
Yep, perfect. Sounds good to me.
I think that would be great.
Yep.
Dan and Lois?
I was wondering if there's any handicap parking in the area.
Question was handicap space in the area
On site.
or on site.
Alton, you there?
I am. There's no handicap parking on site. All the parking will be within the standard design requirements, except there'll be no like access aisles or signage. Just because a parking lot of this size doesn't fall under the requirements to have an ADA parking stall on site. It's under, I think you needed 15 stalls to trip that requirement.
It's a private parking lot.
But you're inviting public though, right, for the cafe now?
Yeah, but there's no retail required on the site.
There's no retail, but you're putting.
No retail parking required on site, I'm sorry.
I think what Carlton means is that the use, given the square footage, does not result in a requirement for dedicated parking for the retail because it's 4.
This is the same thing that we were dealing with in the last one, right?
Yeah,
Basically.
exactly.
But you have parking further down, I mean, on the street by the playground too. So, I mean, there is parking down there, right?
Yeah, I think Scott could probably address in his plan on the traffic side, all of
Yeah,
the
and there are
unmanaged parking.
There are 3 ADA stalls for the park abutting our property, basically. They're the first 3 stalls behind our site up against the cellar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just to follow up on that, Bill, there is parking along Water Street, across the street from the site. There's parking on the opposite side of Water Street alongside the grocery store. And then as Carlton mentioned, there's parking along the handicap parking that's available at the playground, and then another 20 spaces or so that's there. So there's a fair amount of on-street parking available.
That sounds good to me.
All right, any final questions or comments? All right.
Oh, there's someone. Ms. Delavolpe has her hand up.
Brown, you have your hand up?
Hi, yes, good morning. Brahman Delavolpe, 8 Cyrus Street. I had a question about the flashing pedestrian light.
Sure.
Is it push button, flash for a few seconds and then go off?
Yep, that's exactly what it is.
Okay, that would be good as long as it doesn't malfunction, because this area has enough activity and congestion and light pollution as it is. So that would be fine. Thank you.
All right. Well, Brian, I think Matt will probably add all those comments together for you in a memo,
Yep, that would be fine.
and we'll move along with that.
Thank you, Lieutenant.
No problem. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Item number 9, 572 to 590 North Ave development updates on a proposed 38-unit residential building there.
Morning, Lieutenant Anderson. My name is Attorney Jesse Schomer. I'm the representative of the applicant on this project.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you? We're here this morning with our traffic engineer, Scott Thornton of Vanasson Associates, our civil engineer, Chris Barages of Williamson's Barages, as well as a representative from ownership, Dana Lewis is on the line as well. we were last before the TAC back in April, I believe it was. And since then, over the summer months, we've gone through a number of changes through this project, having to do with engineering, stormwater issues, and quite a bit of architectural changes and landscaping modifications. If it would be helpful, I'd be happy to share my screen and just remind the members of where the site is located and what we were previously proposing, and then hand it over maybe to Chris to go through the current project and what changes have been made relative to your review.
Sure, that would be great.
Okay, excellent. Just share screen here. So can everyone see that?
Yep.
Okay, great. So this area here marked locus. This is the development site. You're all familiar with this area here. We're across North Avenue from the Lakeside Office Park. We got automobile dealerships in this area here, Route 128 running past the property here, and then Reading off to plan left over here, and Wakefield Town Center down to the bottom of the plan here. The portion of the site that we're proposing to develop is this front portion here that I'm marking with the cursor. The rear portion of the property is primarily wetlands, so that won't be touched. It's entirely up at the front of the site there. I'll just go to a next slide. This is the site plan of the project as it was proposed the last time we were before you here back in April. As you see here, the building is at the front of the site here. There's a single sidewalk connection here, and the rear portion of the site is completely untouched. The architecture, go here, has changed significantly since last we were before you. This was the proposed project as it was back on April the 13th of this year. As you can see, it's a vision in gray, white, and muted black tones. It's currently been revised significantly through the ZBA's design review process to this building here, which we think is a much better looking building and really complements the residential neighborhood to the south and across North Avenue down towards Wakefield Town Center. The current site plan, and I won't steal Chris's thunder, I'll let him go over the changes in detail, but as you can see here, this is the revised version of the building. The parking area is primarily the same, but we've added a significant number of landscaping improvements here, including a fire pit, grill station, where we're proposing a covered bike rack area here for residents. And one of the changes to the project, which has come out of the subcommittee review, has really been to provide some improvements in the public right-of-way to really dress up the building and give it sort of a grand estate type feel. And that was something that the zoning board really has pressed us on, and we were happy to do that, subject to our ability to work out an agreement with town council to provide that we will be maintaining this area and making sure that these sidewalks are clear of snow and things of that nature. As I mentioned, we were back before you in April, and at the time, you may remember that the primary issues that we were dealing with at the time had to do with visitor parking. I'll just take down the screen share now. Visitor parking, electric vehicle charging stations, some delivery zones, as well as providing sidewalk connections and a crosswalk across North Avenue. Those changes have all been made, and I'll let Chris go through his current site plan in detail to show you where those changes have been made and how we've proposed to do that. And then the zoning board, we're currently scheduled to be back before them in November, I believe November the 13th. So one of the things that they are looking for from us in that process as we wind down the 40B review is for a review letter and a supplement from this committee in terms of your final recommendations for the project and your recommendations for mitigation efforts for this development. So with that, Lieutenant Anderson, I'll pause, and unless you have any questions for me, I'd like to hand it over to Chris to go through his site plan in detail.
Okay, no, that sounds good. I have no questions at this point.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jesse. For the record, Lieutenant and members of the committee, Chris Sparagus, civil engineer from the office of Williams and Sparagus. I'm gonna, let's see, share my screen. I'm listed as host disabled participant screen sharing, so I need to be enabled real quick. Okay, thank you. And I'll pull up the same site plan that you were just looking at with Jesse. This is our layout plan, and you can see the building in the middle of the site. And I'll go back right back to April 29th, the last time that we were before the committee, where each of the members had an opportunity to make some comments. Bill Renault commented that it would be helpful to have a cross connection from our property to the north side of North Ave with a crosswalk and rapid flashing beacons. So we went ahead and added a crosswalk with handicapped accessible ramps and 2 rapid flashing beacons at this location here. We are in the process of sliding this over a little bit closer to the intersection of Willard Street here. That's going to be on the next plan that we submit to the ZBA within the next couple of days here. This was one of the comments that Mr. Renault made. We will also be coordinating with Bill on the connection of our sidewalks across the frontage of the property here with sidewalks that are going to be constructed by the town in front of 598 and 600 North Ave. This is part of money that was contributed from these other developments, the 2 apartment buildings at 598. And then the next one down at 600. So we'll be coordinating with Bill and sharing our electronic information so that the grading can be done properly at this connection point, for example. Our plan also provides detailed construction information for constructing the accessible ramps at the various locations on the site and for providing those detectable warning strips that you see across town. Chief Sullivan commented on the plan the last time we got together and asked us if we could figure out a way to designate some visitor parking spaces. And so as we come into the site here in our main access drive, we've designated 4 visitor parking spaces down in the corner here. Lieutenant Anderson also commented on whether or not we could incorporate a couple of electric vehicle charging spaces, which we were able to do in the front and in this main entrance area of the building here. So right next to our handicap accessible spaces, we're proposing 2 electric vehicle charging spaces here. And then a couple of other items. The chief also was concerned about deliveries as delivery trucks and that sort of thing come into the site. Is there any way that we could come up with a way to have a space that they could pull over temporarily? So what we did was we designated and squeezed one more spot in the back of our parking lot here for a live delivery / parking location here for those trucks. And then as Attorney Schomer mentioned, working with the ZBA and the subcommittee, we have a bike rack area, and you can see that in the back of our site here. This bike rack area will be changing slightly. It's going to get a little bit bigger with another concrete platform right up against the edge of the pavement here. So there'll be a larger area, and then there'll be a shelter on this back part that will be constructed as well for this bike rack area. That summarizes the changes to the plans, Lieutenant, but our team is here to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
I know that's excellent. I like the covered bike rack. I like the obviously the EV spots. Kind of live parking for delivery drivers, I think, is a must. So that's a huge help. Overall, just yeah, some good modifications to the development overall. I have really no questions or comments at this point, so I'll turn it over to the rest of the TAC.
I mean, at this point, they've addressed most of my comments through the design process, so I don't have much to really add at this point. Aside from, you know, we want to look at the typical developer contribution that we do for, you know, the town-wide mitigation, kind of the aggregate impact of these developments. So looking at other similar sized projects, that was in and about, I believe, like 50,000 is what we got for the other 40B on Crescent. So I think that would be appropriate here too.
I think that's fair, especially given its location too.
Yeah.
Yep, I think that's fair.
Just to add on that point, Lieutenant, we did meet with Bill Renault earlier this week to go over stormwater issues and as well as the impact mitigation fees. We're just in the process of ironing out the numbers, so we expect the final ZBA decision to incorporate and memorialize that agreement. So we're in agreement to provide mitigation. We think it's appropriate. It's just a matter of ironing out the final number.
Sure, understood. Anybody else from TAC? Matt, any comments on your end?
I was just curious. I don't remember what the parking count was before and what the total parking count is now. So is it for new spaces?
The total parking count works out like this. It's roughly the requirement is 1.5 parking spaces per unit is what we identified as required. So that would be 54 parking spaces required, and we are providing 56 parking spaces. 3 of those being the handicap accessible spaces.
Okay, thanks.
Dan and Lois.
I don't know if this falls under traffic or parking, but is it possible for them to move that bus stop that's further up towards the car dealership, maybe in between all 3 of these developments? Because I would think that with this many people in there, that they might be jumping on that bus to either go down to the commuter rail or even connect with that shuttle bus from the new development at the head of the lake.
Yeah, Dan, we talked about that with the developer this week in my meeting. So, that's something that the town has to work with the developer on. So that's something we're going to do. We agree. We think it makes a ton of sense to move it to here.
Not many people are going to get on at the car dealership. That's what I'm saying.
Well, yeah, and they're concerned there's no sidewalks and no way to really get there. I guess you could take the bus and then get yourself a car to drive away, but
Yeah.
All right, any other comments from TAC? Any public comments? Any comments from any members of the public on this agenda item? All right, Attorney Schomer, I think we feel comfortable at this point drafting a memo based on the changes, and unless you have anything else for us, I think we're good on our end.
Great, thank you very much. We appreciate your time. Scott, did you have anything you wanted to add? We didn't go to you yet.
No, that's fine. I think
just Scott's mere presence alone was enough.
that's right. No, I think I'm not sure that it was referenced, but in April, weren't we at 38 units and now we're at 36?
That's true. Yeah.
So that helps the parking to work. But I think that the changes were mostly site plan related, and it seems like the project's moving forward. So I really have nothing to add. Thank you for the opportunity, though.
Thanks, Scott. Just to give you a heads up, Lieutenant Anderson, about our timeline for going back to the zoning board. They do meet next week, but we're planning to request a continuance to their first meeting in November. So if the TAC has an opportunity to provide a memo within 2 weeks, I think that would be plenty of time for the zoning board to review it. And so we appreciate your time and your thank you in advance for taking the time to prepare a memorandum for this project.
All right, no problem. Thank you.
Thanks for the extra couple of weeks. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay, moving on to item number 10, the Northeast Metro Tech School. We have some developer updates since we last met with the developers there. Morning, Joe. How you doing?
Morning. Good. How are you?
Good. I'm going to make you a co-host, so I assume you have a lot to show us.
Absolutely. Is Brian? We have our traffic team on.
Yeah, I'm here. So my
there we go.
apologies. My camera is not working at the moment, but I am very much here.
Brian, do you want to introduce yourself and get rolling? And do you want to share your screen or
Yeah, I
try
can
to
share
follow?
my screen. I didn't know if you wanted to say a few words, but yeah, I can get rolling. Let me share my screen here.
I'll
Is
just
the right
quickly
one?
introduce the project team in the meantime. I'm Joe DeSantis with PMA, Owner's Project Manager. Also with PMA today is Kevin Nagro. We have Anthony Lepresti and Marco Zappala on the line. From Niche is our traffic engineer here. We have Brian Zamolka. Also Neil Benner from Gilbane, I see as I'm flying through the list. Carl Franceschi and Vladimir Labetsky from DRA Architects. And I believe that's our project team, unless I missed anybody, and I apologize.
All right, Joe.
Thank you.
Yep. For the record, my name is Brian Zamoka. I'm a senior project manager with Niche Engineering, and we are the traffic consultants on the project. Want to run through this briefly because I know we've had quite a few conversations on this, but as we do our every project, we started out with our existing conditions traffic assessment. So we reviewed the site operations, observed the roadway conditions, and this happened well before, or not well before, but before everything got shut down for COVID. So we were able to see what typical traffic conditions were around that area. What we reviewed was existing parking accommodations. So where's everybody parking? And approximately how many spaces are provided at the current time. Existing site access and circulation. Through this, we were able to identify some conflict points that result in queuing and on-site queuing and some delay. Then we looked at the on-site queuing more and realized how lengthy the queues actually are. So this led to obviously where we are. Also, we looked at the two intersections that are going to be integrated with the new Wakefield High project. So what we noticed along Farm Street, there's a 50-50 traffic distribution. The Wakefield High and Northeast Metro Tech currently dismiss at the same time, which creates obviously added traffic to that area. And as you can see in the picture, and I think as everybody knows at this point, there is excessive queuing coming back from Hemlock, or coming back from Farm all the way on Hemlock. So in efforts to mitigate this excessive volume at that intersection, we explored different areas for an access way. So at the current moment, we have it located approximately 480 feet away from June Circle, or 250 from Old Nahat. So that kind of then led us into, now we know generally what areas we have to study and what intersections need to be looked at further. So we started our full traffic impact study. We looked at existing conditions, safety analysis, trip gen, park gen, operations, and then identified some mitigation operations. We started off with our data collection, and really the main thing we want to look at here is the volume of traffic coming out of Hemlock onto Farm. And in morning peak hour, we have 865 trips, PM 468, Saturday 363. So there's, that doesn't even include the Farm Street traffic itself. That's just entering and exiting Hemlock. So you can see this is causing significant delay. When we ran our safety analysis, we wanted to look at all these intersections that we're studying and understanding what the crashes are and what the crash rates, what does that mean in terms of state and district averages. So the focus of this, obviously, one of them was the Hemlock Farm intersection that over 5 years only experienced 18 crashes, average 3.6 a year. That translated to crash rates 0.43, which is well below the statewide and district average. So from a safety analysis perspective, in terms of crashes, it does fall, in acceptable levels. Where we see issues, and I think, this is also common knowledge, is the speeds along Farm Street, right at Old Nahat. Although the average speed is only about 9 miles per hour over the speed limit, the 95th percentile speed is 17 miles an hour, 17 miles an hour over, it's 47 miles per hour. So we obviously recognize that there needs to be some kind of traffic calming measures at this location. So going back to this driveway, we looked at site distance. Site distance, we found that it doesn't meet all criteria, especially looking left. So once again, another reason to need some kind of traffic control at the location. So looking at future traffic, we ran our trip generation and we established or associated volumes with each intersection with the Hemlock and Farm and the new Farm access way. Now, I want to preface this with this does not include the added traffic associated with the Wakefield High project. However, working with that project team and with GM2, which is the traffic engineer on the project, I believe they're next on the agenda. We could talk more about that project. We looked at their volumes and what volume is going through our intersection, the Farm Street Accessway intersection, is very, very small. So the general results of our study and recommendations aren't going to change as a result of that. The more impact is at the Hemlock and Farm, which I'm sure they will discuss more. So we ran our traffic operations and we looked, right now we're focusing at Farm and Hemlock. Like I said, the operations at that intersection fail. Like I said before, this doesn't include Wakefield High, but they analyzed this as well with their intersection. So just reading their study, I know that they came to the same conclusions. It's a complete fail of an intersection. Looking at the access way, if it was unsignalized, we see that it also runs at 4 levels of service. So we obviously need some mitigation there. Stepping back, looking at the site plan real quick, more from an access and circulation and where this driveway is. So the Farm Street driveway, the intent of it is really to provide access for parents, students, and buses. And Hemlock Road, we see is going to be primarily used as access to the Breakheart Reservation and for additional parking. And what the design for that driveway for our access way is right now is 1 lane in each direction. So here was our first initial mitigation measure, and we've talked about this, the concept traffic signal. So the intersection, like we said before, does not meet site distance requirements. However, it does provide the traffic calming measures that we see are necessary from the speed study. We feel that the signal provides traffic calming measures in the sense of a visual delineation of a narrow travel way, and also the presence of the signal itself and the flashing mode that is will be on will provide that traffic calming to slow down vehicles. The traffic signal in itself drastically improves queuing and delay at the driveway approach, and it minimizes offsite impacts to wetlands and abutting properties, and there's no land takings. Just looking at this from a wetland perspective, this the traffic signal option only impedes about 8,000 square feet of the wetland buffer, and I want you to remember that number because when I compare it to the roundabout, you'll see the difference. So though, like I said, this drastically improves level of service and delay. And at the request of the TAC, we did look at the roundabout. What we found with the roundabout is that provides that same traffic calming. However, it's very costly. The wetland is significantly larger. The wetland buffer taking is significantly larger. The traffic signal was 8,000. This is 19,000 square feet. And the right-of-way taking to the west is 2,800 square feet. And on top of that, test roads were required for the geotech work on the site side. So a lot of added costs with that. Furthermore, what's not included in here is we, following the discussions on the roundabout versus the signal, I wanted to reach out to Matt Keeley, who I wanted to get his thoughts. And what we discussed was basically, in his opinion, and I'm sure Matt could speak on this as well, but he didn't feel that it met the first two traffic signal warrants, which are the 8-hour and 4-hour warrants. Those are typically used by MassDOT to justify if a traffic signal is needed. According to Matt, and we issued a memo, so we did this legwork, and the first two warrants are not met. However, there is a third warrant that is specific to developments that experience a high volume of traffic during a 1-hour period throughout the day, and that is the peak hour warrant 3, which is met for the traffic signal. So we've provided that information, and that we've provided our recommendations, and I'm sure Matt can respond to his thoughts on that, but that's kind of where we are right now. We prefer the traffic signal, but we're obviously open to hear the thoughts of the TAC. So that concludes my presentation now.
Excellent. I think we'll probably have Matt kick it off first, but I'll say that the new access driveway, in my opinion, is a must to deconflict the two schools traffic situation, right? So I think that that driveway is definitely needed. I would say that, in my opinion, the roundabout is my preferred option. I think that it provides a much greater traffic calming effect, and it'll do it at all hours. I just don't think that a signal on flash is going to give us the same type of traffic calming situation that a roundabout would. I think that a signal is likely with just the sheer number of vehicles in and out of a regional school like this. Yeah, I think the level of service wouldn't be that great with a signal there, and it's going to back up traffic in all directions in the morning at different times. It might be efficient in some ways, but I think it can only get so efficient. I think that what we really need to focus on is safety and traffic flow, and I think that a roundabout kind of it checks both of those boxes off, keeps traffic flowing, requires people to slow down and be very cautious about what they're doing. And I think it moves people in and out of the driveway and down Farm Street much better than a signal would. But I'm going to turn it over to Matt. That's just some of my initial thoughts on it.
Thanks, Joe. I tend to agree with everything Joe said. I did review the memo that Brian provided about the traffic signal warrants. The initial traffic study showed that it didn't meet many of the warrants, but the updated memo showed that it meets the peak hour warrant. I still, I'm not totally comfortable with, installation of a signal solely based on a peak hour warrant, especially one that includes, right turns out of the school driveway to sort of meet that warrant threshold. I also agree with Joe that a signal isn't really going to provide that traffic calming and speed reduction that we're hoping for to improve the safety in the area. I think the roundabout will do that, all day long, whereas the signal is just sort of that temporary interruption during the school hours. I think with it being green, most of the day, I think speeds will still prevail in there along that stretch for most of the day. In terms of the wetland impacts, could you just clarify? I mean, it looks like on this slide that we're not showing any sidewalks or crosswalks for the signal option. So I would think that those wetland impacts or property impacts might be greater once you put sidewalks on there, because the roundabout has a pretty wide sidewalk on that concept, which kind of drives up those impact numbers. Could you just clarify that?
So the conversations about the sidewalk kind of happened post these calculations. However, this option never included crosswalks because of the lack of pedestrian accommodations along this side. Since those conversations have happened, the wetland buffer may be slightly more, there might be a slightly greater wetland buffer taking as a result of that, but.
If I can just chime in on the wetland buffer discussion, I mean, we were talking in the last meeting about actual wetland impact. And, you know, the roundabout has no actual wetland filling in any way. So, I mean, from my perspective, this seems like, I mean, I think you've demonstrated that it works pretty well. The land taking on the other side, I mean, essentially that can be a land swap with Gas and Light, because they're looking to install a battery farm for your project too. So, I mean, and we're looking for 2,800 as opposed to what, 2 acres, I think is what they're installing. So, I mean, I think this is honestly, from my perspective, a no-brainer that this demonstrates that it works. And it is, you know, my preference. I'll echo what Matt has said, and I'll also echo what Lieutenant Anderson said, that you know, this will provide the traffic calming that we need in the area, and you know, that seems like the preferred alternative from my perspective as well. So I think all three of us are in agreement on that.
I'll just ask this question though, and I guess I was confused, or I assumed that there was a sidewalk. So is there no sidewalk planned here, or is it?
So when we did the roundabout, we wanted to put sidewalk on the roundabout option just to see what it would look like. And it kind of showed actually, you know, more of the right of way taking when we add that sidewalk.
Okay, because the sidewalk is, to me, it's an absolute must, right? I mean, it's
Yeah, I think we've all made that clear a couple of times in multiple meetings. So.
David Conway is on the line. David, would you mind speaking to the wetlands implications here?
Yeah, thanks, Joe. So it's Dave Conway from Niche Engineering, civil engineer. So the rotary option does have more wetland buffer impact. So it's you know, there's more drainage that will have to be dealt with, and it starts, what actually isn't shown on here, but it starts to kind of get close to is some of our replication areas for the impacts on the existing wetland. You know, it's you know, moving outside the existing existing farm street pavement footprint makes it a little bit of a bigger hurdle for us to jump over for the conservation.
Yeah, but David, you don't have any filling with this option. So, I mean, if you're looking to add, I mean, unless you were looking to carve out between flags, I can't even see the closest where it says wetland buffer. I'd say look to move it somewhere else.
Yeah, that, I mean,
a bunch of spots where you can easily do it. I understand your point, but there's no actual wetland impacts in this. So
yeah, to avoid the wetland impacts, it'll probably have to be a wall along that whole edge.
So explain to me why.
The grade difference.
Okay. Well, that wasn't included in the plans that we've received to review.
You know, we developed these sketches to kind of look at, but there's going to have to be just a wall. Again, I'm you know, that would limit the impacts to kind of what you see here, and that's kind of number that drives up the price a bit too.
Well, I think we can have a dialogue on that if that's the biggest issue.
Further comments from TAC? Julie?
Just a point of clarification, Bill, when you say that we were all talking about sidewalks, I couldn't agree more. Are we talking just around the Farm Street area or all the way up the driveway to the high school?
All the way up the driveway to the high school. That's what we've been discussing. That hasn't been included in any of the plans to date.
Okay, I second that wholeheartedly, and getting many lots of feedback from constituents that they want a sidewalk all the way up the driveway. So thanks.
Can I clarify on the sidewalk?
Sure.
We had a design meeting yesterday, and we will be moving forward with reflecting a sidewalk on the plans moving forward. And I think the comment made before was just that there's some skepticism about Concom being able to approve that with their concerns about the driveway and, you know, additional wetlands impacts related to that.
Yeah, what they have done is ask for us to provide the meeting minutes that we're the ones that are asking for that. So I think that's going to weigh a little differently than you know, just the driveway discussion you folks have been having. So
That's fine. I was just clarifying what Brian had said before too.
yeah, I'm just filling you in on my end what they've asked for. So you folks are all clear.
Lieutenant, this is Kevin, if I could just add. Yeah, Joe, thank you for saying that. Yeah, we've had some discussions with DCR and the town manager, and they made it clear that that was the preferred option. And, you know, we had obvious reasons, wetlands, and there were other student safety issues that led us to not put that sidewalk in. But given the discussion with the town manager and the future of the roads program, you have a program in town about improvements. He made it clear that the sidewalk was something that we have to consider. So, and we were at Concom Tuesday night, and they've asked us to test fit a few different configurations of the road. We're pretty straight right now. So we are going to test fit the sidewalk and a couple of other changes at the other end of the driveway and see what it does. But we're going down that path.
Okay, excellent.
So, okay. Yeah.
Mr. Mayo or anybody else from TAC?
Yeah, thank you. I have my hand up, right? Sometimes I can't tell. Yeah, we were very adamant with them about the sidewalk going down for the access way to the school for many reasons, safety reasons being number one. And number two, if it's not there, I mean, the kids are going to use it anyway. I mean, the people are going to walk down there anyway with no sidewalk. So that's a huge safety issue in our mind, and it's completely against the direction that we're going from walkability all over town. And I also think that it is important for the town of Wakefield to look at that corridor going down the rest of the way down Farm Street towards the high school, where there is, you know, there are missing sections of sidewalks there. And I'll also be talking to Saugus town manager, because there's no sidewalks on the other side when we go the other way. So I think that that's really important to provide that information. But I do have a question. Maybe the traffic team can answer this for me. From the vocational school student area, what percentage do you think will be coming in this access way here via Route 1 and Saugus versus coming up the other way? I mean, probably the vast majority. Do you have any numbers on that or any thoughts?
I don't have the exact numbers on hand, but I believe it was about 50-50 between the Hemlock and the access way.
Okay. So that would remove 50% of the people off of Hemlock at least.
Correct. I mean,
and most of those would be coming from Saugus, we think, up Route 1 through Saugus.
From northbound, yes, correct.
Yeah.
Okay. I will get you those exact numbers if you would like them.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
If we have no further comment from TAC, I'd like to open it up to public comment. We will start with Bob Brooks. You just state your address for us and unmute. Morning.
Good morning. Sorry about that, Mr. Chairman.
No problem.
My name is Bob Brooks. I live at June Circle, and I am in a butter to this project. The first question I have is, we had someone in the neighborhood send a report to you. I just want to see if you received that. Her name was Linda Che.
Let me see if that's the one that I do have. Hold on one second. I do have it.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to see if that was shared with the other committee members.
So that was shared. I received an email from her on the 17th. So I just had share with the two engineers last night, and I encourage her to attend for public comment, but if she's unable to, I'll try to summarize her letter.
Yeah, she is not, she said we are able to comment on it if we need to, but I just wanted to make sure you had it.
Yep.
Having resided here in June Circle for the past 25 odd years, I've seen the traffic increase every single year. And I look at both of these projects with the lights and with the new roundabout. And if it was required, I think a roundabout possibly would work much better than the traffic lights. Trying to get out of June Circle is a total mess. The sight lines looking down on Farm Street towards Saugus is hard to get out. You look, you see no cars, and then you look to the right coming up the hill, and there's a bunch of cars, so you have to wait. You look at the right side again to clear, and then you start moving out, and the next thing you know, there's speeding cars coming by, which you have to jam on brakes. And many times you could notice the other cars slamming on their brakes, and I'm surprised there's not as many traffic accidents as usual. There is a light there. I think trying to get out with all the backup it's near impossible. And the only way you're going to have to do it is get yourself out into the street. I also see that happening on Old Nahant Road, which is almost probably about 100 feet from June Circle. The same thing happening there. I noticed that a lot of the traffic that backs up down on Farm Street at the other end of Old Nahant Road, with parents bringing kids to the school during the school time. When the road does back up to Oak Street, the people coming down Oak Street will actually take a right on Old Nahant and then come down Farm Street, which again will increase more traffic. It's just it's overwhelming at times. The one thing that we didn't figure was on the table was sidewalks. And as a resident, I see a lot of runners going up and down Farm Street heading to Saugus, and they're running in the street or offside the street. I've walked that many times myself, and you have to decide whether you want to walk on the left side or the right side, whether you want the traffic behind you or you want to face the traffic, not knowing that an accident could be imminent at any given time. So I think safety is an important factor there. Recently, my wife and I were going to Walmart, and we went down heading to Farm Street to Saugus. We went through the set of lights. We came out at the intersection where the overpass is going over Route 1, and the traffic was all backed up. And these were parents bringing students to Saugus High School. Unfortunately, we weren't able to take the right-hand turn to get on Route 1 heading north, and we were stuck in the traffic. And many of the cars there, which had parents in them, actually let the kids off to walk to the high school right on the overpass. Now, that said, I cannot imagine any sidewalks not being on Farm Street, and I cannot imagine any parents that are bringing their kids to school would instead of driving up a driveway that was backed up with traffic, let the kids off there. So as far as a safety issue, I think it's that has to be the priority.
Thank you for those comments. I agree, and as a resident of June Circle, I'm sure you've seen us out there for the last however many decades, running radar and doing traffic enforcement.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and if they park against where June Circle is, unfortunately, they block the sight lines to try to get out and make a left-hand turn.
Yeah, it's a tough spot to try to be out there, but historically we have been, and we still see speeds in that traffic report that are very high. So despite that being a historical spot that we've sat at to try to slow people down, the speeds are still very high, and like you said, the visibility is tough. Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it. We're gonna move on to Bronwyn.
Good morning, Bronwyn Delavolpe, 8 Cyrus Street. Thank you for all the information. I was wondering if I could trouble you to please put up one of the last slides showing the roundabout, please.
Sure. Give me 2 seconds here.
Yes, thank you. Can you show me where Hemlock is in relation to this diagram? Where the existing Hemlock is?
Well, Hemlock is all the way north. Like that's probably best to show you here.
Okay,
So where this volume is the driveway, and Hemlock is all the way up here.
okay. All right,
Old Nahat Road comes out right here.
yes. Okay. All right, can you go back to the other slide, please? Thank you. Okay, so that's way up the street from it. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. I also wanted to say, you know, I'm really dismayed that that more wetlands are going to be impacted. We really got to stop doing that. I understand that it's a puzzle with moving pieces and it's difficult, but I just wanted to register my dissatisfaction with that, but I do appreciate the information. Thank you.
Just to be clear, Bronwyn, just so you're aware, they're calling it a wetland buffer taking, but there's no actual wetland taking in this at all. So this is just work in the buffer zone, which, you know, we typically permit in the town all the time.
Right, I understand that. And I'm sure there are going to be the usual precautions that are taken. Thank you.
Joe, you're on mute, buddy.
All right.
There you go.
We'll go with Chicky first. Had their hand raised.
Okay, hi, Chicky Taylor, 9 Old Nahat Road.
Good morning.
Hi. I'm concerned about the amount of traffic that we get on our road. I don't know if you can do anything about it, but I've sat on my front porch and I've counted 25, 30, 35 cars lined up trying to get down my end of Old Nahat Road. So I don't know if you can address that at all with, you know, with all this extra traffic that's going to be coming from the school. And the other thing is, you know, there have been several accidents through the years right at that intersection, Old Nahat and Farm Street. And one of the problems is there's a sign there. And when you try to pull out left to go towards the school, if you have two cars coming from the school going up towards Saugus, if they're close together and somebody has their blinker on to turn onto Old Nahat Road, but there's a car close behind them, somebody will pull out. Then that other car, that car behind the one that's turning is the one that hits the one there because they can't see it. And that sign that's right there at the end, is there any way to move that? It is in the site of traffic there.
Okay. Thank you for that. Bill, maybe we can look into that sign, and I think to their point, you know, that's kind of what we're trying to achieve by this this roundabout concept, is calming traffic, so that way some of the other turning movements on Farm Street are less impacted by the speed of other vehicles that are traveling down Farm.
You know, the only thing is that the traffic that goes up the hill, we have, you know, there's up Farm Street towards Saugus. That's where there's a lot of zooming going on. Motorcycles, all that kind of stuff, just horrendous noise. Trucks, mostly motorcycles, really, you know, really they gear it up and just go. So really the traffic speed is in both directions. It's not just coming down from Saugus, it's also going up from the school up until the top of Old Nahat Road when they finally make it over the hill there.
Sure. Next we have Paul Rybicki. Paul, you have your hand up.
Good morning. Paul Rybicki, 152 Parker Road. I had a couple of questions and I had made one comment. First question is the sidewalk that's now being looked at. What is the town going to require in terms of the width of the sidewalk?
5 feet. that's typical for with the sidewalks around town.
Excellent. Thank you. There's still no plan for any kind of bike lane here.
At this point, no. That could change in the future, but looking at how tight we are right away wise, I don't know how much room we'd be able to make work through there. So it looks like you'd have at least a shared use through the roundabout. And then as we get further down, we'd have to evaluate if we can widen a little bit to make that happen.
In my final, I just wanted to make a comment that I believe, for the record, that everybody who's pushing this project should be embarrassed calling this a driveway. When I asked the question about a sidewalk on August 24th, and I said this was not a driveway, there was a debate. I was told by Kevin, it's absolutely a driveway. Well, you can call a duck, a horse, it's still a duck. And in this case, I'm saying the reason is, look in a legal definition of a driveway is typically under 150 feet. It's typically between private. Tell me how many driveways in Wakefield are over a half mile long. Okay, and then the situation is, if you look at the town website, it has clear requirements for a road. When I debated it on the August 24th meeting, and I was told that it was a driveway, I was shocked at the very next meeting, the stuff was handed out to me, it was labeled an access road by the project proponents. So they can't even be consistent in calling it a driveway. It absolutely is not a driveway. It is an access road. It should qualify under the standards that the town has. The town is very clear what a minor road is, what a major road. It's really, really sad that the kids are actually going to pay the price for 30, 40, 50 years from now, suffering because of the short-sightedness of putting in a quote driveway that they were well thought out with no sidewalk proposal to start with. So at this point, I don't want to just rant or waste time. I want to just state this is not a driveway. Everybody involved in this should realize this is an access road. It should be under the standards that the town has for roads. It should be considered a minor road and treated that way from an engineering and safety perspective. You can do the Vision 2030 and all the other hype you want, but if we play games with kids' safety in a situation where we already know someone has died in the Vogue parking lot, let's be serious, guys. Let's do the right thing and call it an access road and put it over to 129 so you don't have a half-mile long driveway with 1,600 kids skateboarding. And how long before someone's injured, even with a sidewalk, is not going to be sufficient. That's what I think.
I'm going to turn it over to Kevin, who has his hand raised. Kevin.
Thank you, Lieutenant. It was said that, I determined it's a driveway. We have Dave Conway from Niche Engineering on, and I would just let him ask that he tell us why it's a driveway. It's not, Kevin,
Sure.
it's not the district.
Yeah, if we could just be brief on it though.
Yeah, and then again, we've agreed that we're test fitting and we're going to we're finding a way to put the sidewalk along. The access or the drive. Steve had a better name for it, and I'm stumbling and trying to figure out what he wanted us to call it. We're going to do that. We've taken that into account. So I just want Niche, if you could give it 2 minutes on, we didn't arbitrarily call it a driveway. Just give him a minute to talk about it.
Kevin, really, it's like 30 seconds. We're just trying not to call it a roadway, just because it's not going to be a town of Wakefield right away. Making it clear that the school's going to own it, maintain it. There's some access exemptions that you get if it's a town right away. We don't get those. So it's really just, the physical layout of it is meant to accommodate trucks and buses. So we're not, skimping in like the geometry of it in any way. It's really just, meant to like clarify that it's the Vogue School is a public entity, but it's a this driveway will be owned by them. It's not a town of Wakefield road.
Lieutenant, did you want him to address 129?
I'm sorry.
Did you want him to address the 129 question?
Sure, if you'd like to.
Just that the school doesn't own any property that abuts 129. There's no physical way to the school doesn't have the ability to do takings from, well, actually it's Braycott Reservation, so we couldn't anyway, but there's no physical connection from the school property to 129. And that doesn't even begin to just, there's the river and the wetlands in between it. So it's not viable.
Okay, any other comments or questions from members of TAC on item 10? Or members of the town council, if you're still on?
Nothing.
Okay, so I think we're going to digest this second presentation, and we will set up a future date. Mr. Mayor.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, just one point. Maybe it should come from Bill. Bill, can you send the I don't get to digest this, but we know where TAC seems to be going. Can you send a comments over to Concom sooner rather than later?
Yep.
Bill?
Yeah, I was waiting for this meeting to be done. And so we have meeting minutes as well that talked about it in the last one. So those will go out today.
Okay. And with comments about what you said today would be great.
Yep, I'll include it all. Sure. Yep.
Okay, any final comments from members of TAC? We'll move on to item number 11. Dan and Lois.
As far as that access road or driveway, whatever you want to call it, the school owns all that property that they're taking to build that roadway?
Yes.
Okay.
They own
As
all
far-
the property.
The roundabout, at both roundabouts, if they build both of them, are all the responsibility of the town of Wakefield?
They would be, yes.
It would pick up the cost of both roundabouts.
No. They would be funded. Well, the town project, I mean, it's the town project, so technically it is all town money, right? But for the tech, that would be through their funding source with all the other communities. So they would fund the construction of that. We would then own it. So they would have to make right-of-way revisions that allow us to have the right-of-way to maintain it. But that'd all be done in one article at town meeting, along with the potential swap for the battery farm.
Lieutenant, I lost my how to raise my hand thing. I apologize. I just have to jump in and say that we can, as a team, our engineers, our OPM, commit to the cost. We'll have to talk to you, just put it in the right direction. We've made a district-wide decision and a budgetary decision on how much to pay, and that was associated with the traffic improvement and signal. Any cost above and beyond that is not part of our budget, and I can't agree to anything on this call. So we'll have to bring the message back, and the funding sources will have to be discussed.
I mean,
I heard earlier, Bill, about contributions on some other. Is that a possibility in this case? Contributions to the town for improvements, or is that on the table?
I think we would entertain that. Yeah, I would entertain that.
Okay.
If you want us to construct it, we'd be happy to do that.
If Lieutenant, when you're wrapping it up, if you can lead us in the right direction, we have to go back to the district and report. And then who are the right people to talk to? And
we can provide a letter that summarizes, just like I'm sending the Concom, I'll just send that to you as well. There's a separate cover straight to you. And, again, I think you got to look at the cost that you're putting in for a 2,000-foot road / driveway, whatever you want to call it. And then the size of the school. This cost is honestly the increase from a signal is de minimis. I mean, honestly, you keep talking about the cost, but I mean, it's really not as crazy, I think, as you're making.
So it's not my cost. I'm not an estimator. I just want, because it's said, I want the people, don't want the people to walk away with the wrong impression. We have the cost of the signal and improvements is roughly $500,000. Our estimate from the engineer, not from PMA, not from the district, the engineers have said it's $2.5 million.
I don't think that's the right number.
And again, I'll provide you the information. I just want it was said, so we have an estimate of 2.5 million that everyone understands what's going on in the world, and you have your own project down the street, and it's not something the district can just absorb. So we would love to have a discussion with the town about how to accomplish the goals of I get the traffic, there's a program in town, I forget the name of it, roads improvements, and how we
Yeah.
can help, but it's a,
That's for maintaining our existing roads. So
yeah,
that's
what's the
not-
program
that-
called? You gave it a program name.
Our roads program?
No, you had a Vision Wakefield or something.
Oh,
like that?
Vision 2030, that's different.
Oh, it is? Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize. I thought it was all part of the same.
They're
improvement.
all different.
Okay, yeah, so we have to figure out, we're already working on the sidewalk, on the driveway. We have a meeting coming up in a short 2 weeks with Concom, where we'll have sketches and everything on that. And I'll see if I can't get you something to demonstrate from the engineers to demonstrate the cost and how prohibitive it would be to the project. But again, we're not saying we're not contributing. We're trying to work this out. And thank you.
And on Kevin's point, just piggybacking of clarifying information, I'm just quickly looking at the handout that we provided at the Concom walk last Sunday, and it's labeled as a driveway. So I'm blurry here, so you guys can't see that, I don't think. But just clarifying that one quickly as well. Thank you.
We don't want that to be a controversy. You tell us what you want us to call it, and we'll call it that. It's benefit. Again, it was clear from the police and fire and the district and project that if we can make this driveway work, or roadway, whatever we want to call it, we will. It's a benefit to both. So that's how we want to proceed. And we want to work with you.
Excellent. All right. So I want to be fair to our next agenda item, which is just a short distance down the road. So I'm going to close out item 10 for the vocational.
Mr. Chairman?
Can I just comment?
I did have,
Let me take a quick comment from Bob, like 30 seconds, and then 30 seconds from Dan.
okay, I'll make it brief. I know it was brought up in the past, putting another access road in from the opposite direction heading out to Water Street. And they talked about not owning the property. Their property line goes approximately 442 feet from Water Street, and the property is owned by DCR. I was very curious about, they talked about not doing a plan. I would have liked to seen a plan with putting an access road in that area, because there's plenty of area between the wetlands, and you could put an overpass over the Saugus and Mill River, and that would be a shorter distance than a half-mile road on coming out to Farm Street. And if a cost could be evaluated, I imagine they could negotiate with the DCR about that unused area and find out what the advantages of putting a road there would be.
Okay. Thank you for those comments.
Thank
Dan?
you.
Yes, I'd just like to say, as a 75-year-old resident of Wakefield, and a taxpayer, and not an engineer, a traffic engineer at all, but I know the Volk School has a budget, but I also have a budget, and we're on a fixed income. And if they put another roadway in, I think that should be picked up by the cost of the Northeast Volk School, not our cost. We got enough coming up in the next few years as far as increases in taxes. And I realize this is not traffic advisory or parking, but I'd just like to make that known.
Mr. Benjamin, so we're clear. We have a budgeted item for the traffic signal and interchange improvement, as well as the driveway. That is on the vocational school district budget.
All right, duly noted. Joe, any closing remarks before we move on?
No, we appreciate your time today, and look forward to circling back with you all. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Can we stay on the call? Can we stay on the call and listen to the high school presentation? We've been coordinating with them.
Say it again.
We're going to stay on the call just to listen to the high school presentation. Our engineers have been collaborating together, so we're going to hang on and listen.
Perfect. That sounds
Thank
great.
you.
All right, item number 11 is the Wakefield Memorial High School developer updates. Who needs their screen shared?
Mr. Chair, David Giangrande from GM2 Associates.
Good morning.
If I could share my screen, that would be helpful.
Certainly can.
And I'll provide a brief introduction to the project and the team, and thank you for having us this morning. We greatly appreciate having this project brought before you. My name is Helen Fantini. I'm a project manager with SMMA. With me here today is David Giangrande with GM2, our traffic consultant. Also, Aaron Prestilio, civil engineer with SMMA. We also have representatives from our owner's project manager, Left Field, Lynn Stapleton, and Tim Baker. I also see Tom Galvin from the PBC and Sandra Clary from the SBC. We have been working with the PBC and SBC, the town and the district for over a year now to develop and explore various options for this important project for the town of Wakefield. We started out with 11 options about a year ago, but the preferred solution is a new building to be built where in the place of Beasley Oval. It's approximately 260,000 square feet, designed for 1,000 students and 160 staff and faculty. I'm going to turn it over next to Erin to walk you through the site plan, and we welcome your input. Thank you.
David, a quick request before we get started. Is there any way to make the presentation larger on the screen? Right now I'm seeing some preview.
I'm sure I can.
Okay.
Bear with me.
So I'm just going to overview the proposed site plan. This is a really exciting project for us to be working with the town on. I'd like to focus today on some of the off-site improvements that the project will be proposing. It is a large project. There's a lot of stuff to talk about. And we'd love to be before the commission formally or informally in the future to talk about perhaps on-site circulation, distribution of parking. I heard projects before, we're talking about EV charging stations. So there's a whole lot to talk about. But we're mostly here before you this morning to talk about the off-site improvements. Briefly, Helen touched upon the proposed building is going to be in the location of the existing Beasley Oval. We have parking proposed. It's a slight increase. Currently, there's 269 spaces. The project will provide 280 on-site and also providing additional expansion at Landrigan, the parking lot across the street from Landrigan Field, just up the road on Hemlock. We are replicating the Beasley Oval at New Track and Field. There's all sorts of wonderful spaces for the school and the community, outdoor learning spaces, passive and active recreation, accessible access throughout the site. And this image shows our roundabout concept for intersection improvements at Hemlock and Fern. So what I'm going to do now is hand it over to David. He's going to review the traffic study that was submitted to you all beforehand and review existing conditions, what we found, kind of talk about a little bit about the two approaches that we studied, the roundabout and the signals, and then provide some recommendations that were also included in the report.
Thank you, Erin. I'm David Giangrande with GM2, as I had mentioned. I'm a registered professional engineer in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I have a master's degree focused in traffic and transportation from Northeastern University. I could mess with this slide, and I think what I need to do is stop sharing and step out and then step back into one of my other screens here. If you'd like me to do that, I can do that.
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to stop share. Okay, and then I'm going to try to share. And I think I can use this screen and share that screen. No, I'm sorry, it's coming up as the same.
No, I have a full screen on my end at least.
Oh, you do?
Same here. Yep, same here.
It looks good. Before you get started, David, I also want to introduce David Capaldo. He's our construction manager for Bond Brothers. So he's joining us as well. It looks great on the screen now. Please, David, take it away.
Great, thank you very much. So GM2 was hired to take a look at the impacts of the proposed redevelopment of the Memorial High School. And then also a step beyond that is look at, if necessary, conceptualize mitigation as it relates to impacts from this school. So to facilitate that, we developed a traffic impact study, which is what I'll walk you through this morning briefly. I don't want to take up too much time, and then we can have some time to have a robust discussion. So one of the first things we do when we do these traffic impact reports is take a look at the study area. In this particular site, we looked at 7 different intersections, starting up here at the top of the screen at Water Street along Farm, and then we looked at several other intersections along Farm, which included Woodville School exit, their entrance, the north driveway of the high school, the south driveway of the high school, and we're working in a south direction now, Nahant and Hemlock. Now, we looked at that as 2 distinct intersections because they're offset. The other thing we do is as part of this process of developing a report, we go through extensive existing conditions and collect a tremendous amount of data. So we looked at everything from lane widths to shoulders, to sidewalks, to signage, to pavement markings, ADA compliance, pedestrian desire routes, which way the pedestrian's going, bicycle accommodations, which was brought up earlier, what's available, internal and external circulation patterns, operational issues, how does that area in and around Nahant and Hemlock function. We looked at crash data. We took turning movement counts and took daily counts. We also looked at speed along that Farm Street corridor. We put out ATRs, automatic traffic recorders. You might have seen them directly in front of the high school. And we also put one between the high school and the Metro Tech. So from that, as I had said, we collect a bunch of data. In particular, I just always like to make sure that everybody knows when we collected the data, we collected it not quite a year ago. It was on 11/16, 11/17 of 2021, when the school was back in and functioning. We had almost 13,000 trips along Farm Street, which is some heavy volume daily trips. At Hemlock, we had 2,600. And when we looked at the peak hour, we found that the peak hours occurred between 7 and 8 a.m. And then between 2:45 and 3:45 in the afternoon p.m. We also take a look at all sorts of pedestrian information and bicycle information. There was significant pedestrian activity. There was more activity in the afternoon, and there was not a lot of bicycle activity. Now, that may have been as a result of the fact that we did collect it in November. Maybe some of the kids that might want to ride to school, maybe it was getting a little bit cold for them. But I don't think that there's that much of a bias. There isn't a lot of bike activity. The one thing I would note is when we looked at the pedestrian information, we also collect crash data. So we collected the most recent 5 years of data that we could get. And we solicited the town of Wakefield, and then that kicked us over. They report all of their accidents, anything they have, to Mass DOT, so we sourced information from them. And I think that one thing, and it will come through in the presentation, one thing I out of all of this crash data, we were well below the statewide average and the district average. So there wasn't a lot of concern about the number of crashes. However, there was two issues with pedestrians right in front of the high school. So we're going to talk about that a little bit towards the end, but we did look at all the crash data, and there was limited issues in terms of injury, and most of them were just fender benders. So once we get to a point in our existing conditions and we gather all this information, we put together an existing conditions report, and then we assess operations. How is the traffic signal operating, right? How is that intersection operating? So we looked at all 7 intersections, and if we look at it out there today, there's actually 3 trouble points. There's Farm Street. I didn't highlight it in yellow, and I'm sorry about that. There is a level of service F right at the top of the sheet here. And that is Farm Street at the exit driveway coming out on the Wakefield Memorial High School. That is functioning currently at a level of service F in the AM condition. You also have a Farm Street at Nahant, the eastbound from Nahant, the left and right are functioning at a level of service F. And I'm probably preaching to the choir here. I get that, so I'll be brief. And then Farm Street and Hemlock, the westbound coming out of the school sites. And so trying to take that left turn out of the school site. So I think everybody's aware of that. There's a problem there. There's a problem there today. So we'll talk a little bit about that as we go through. What we do is we do several different analysis. We usually do an existing condition. We do a no build, which is going to be 7 years from when we collect the data. And then we'll do a build condition. A lot of times we'll do a build condition without doing mitigation. But in this particular case, because the level of service at the existing condition is poor, we know we're going to have to do some mitigation here. So anyways, the no build condition. No build condition is, as we had mentioned, just population growth rate information we get from the state level. And onto that, we add the Northeast Metro Tech numbers. So we coordinated those numbers. Brian and I and my staff coordinated the numbers and reviewed it and came up with the corresponding numbers that we felt the modal split, how many vehicles would be coming to our location and how many would be going out the new driveway. So we did consider, and this is a very important point, we considered in our no build condition that our school was not built, but the Metro Tech was built. And then we do a level of service analysis. And I'm sorry, this is a little bit difficult to read. It's hard to put on one sheet. But I think the important piece here is that in particular on the left column here, we have the no build level of service, the existing level of service, and then the no build level of service. And we did lost my spot here, I'm sorry. So there are 3 additional intersections from the original level of service that were added. As you can see, we now have Water Street at Farm Street. So just by looking at the no build condition, we would go from a level of service E, to a level of service F, which will require some tweaking of those traffic signals in a no build condition. And also we would go from an E to an F at Farm Street in the Woodville School. And that's a direct result of having the increase in just the number of years in the background growth and the new school. The other 3 pretty much stayed the same. Existing condition to build, no build condition, stayed level of service Fs at those 3 critical intersections. So as we get to the next phase is, okay, the high school project is being built. What kind of mitigation can we offer? Well, we have 2 alternatives. We have option 1, which would be a more traditional signal design, and you were discussing this as well with Brian and the Northeast Metro Tech team. So there's pros and cons with either solution. On the signalized intersection, we have protected left turn movements. The signal can be set up for preemption for fire and police apparatus, and it has direct pedestrian and bicycle crossings. Very traditional, right? The negative part is that the left turns create a long queue, and if you look in this particular design, you can see the left turn queue bay goes all the way beyond the track, so it's elongated, and that so therefore it would have some impact along Farm Street. The queues are worsened on Nahant Street due to the signals, because we'd be taking that piece of the signal pie and distributing it to other locations during those peak hours that we mentioned earlier. We'd have exclusive turn bays southbound, which is onto Hemlock, which we just discussed. There would be capacity issues internally because we'd be able to, the way that the trips would platoon and come into the site when you have the left turn bay. So it would cause a little bit more friction internally as we're trying to move vehicles through. It's sort of a platoon of vehicles coming in, rushing in, and not potentially pulling up. So we have some mitigation measures to help solve that. So that is that's the signal design concept. It has obviously pros and cons. The roundabout concept, southbound on Farm Street, provides ample storage, will improve the levels of service northbound in all movements. The peak hour just shows excellent operation. We need to be able to facilitate the southbound through movement. So we do need a second lane of traffic coming through as a through movement. So if you look at the top of that roundabout, it shows 2 lanes. That's so that we can facilitate a nice laminar flow in and around the roundabout out towards Route 1. So we're right at that. When we look at the capacity of a roundabout, we're right at that tipping point. It's around 1,400 vehicles per day. We're slightly over that. So, right now on a conceptual level, this is what we're proposing. Again, this is a comparison, and I think, we talked a little bit about the no build, and that's on the left-hand side here. And then we have the no build here. We have the signal and the roundabout. And I think just in a general form, and I know it's difficult to read, but if you look at the highlighted elements here, and you look at the roundabout, it's showing a superior capacity, ability to handle the trips. So the lowest level of service here is a C versus an F on the signalized intersection. And over the no build, it's certainly much better. So conclusions, we overall both solutions provide a better overall level of service over the no build condition. Realignment of Hemlock in Nahant is critical. It's very important that we realign that intersection and make it 1 instead of 2. Farming Nahant requires exclusive turn bays. In either case, head-on and angular crashes are still possible. However, the crashes are less likely and less severe. There will be, with the roundabout scheme, there could be additional rear end collisions or crashes. We feel that those will be, and data provides that those will be less severe. And we believe that over a period of time, the drivers will adapt, and some of those numbers will go down in terms of any kind of crashes overall. So our recommendation: construct the roundabout at Farm Hunt and Hemlock Street. Construct the left turn bay. That is approximately 300 feet long. We talked a little bit about the issue with the pedestrians crossing right at the driveways. We would recommend a rapid flashing beacon and realignment of the crosswalks there, so that we're controlling where the kids are crossing. Potentially in the future, a crossing guard could be at that location as well. We should optimize the signals down at Water Street and Farm Street. We spoke briefly that that signal set will, from existing to the design year, will degrade a little bit. So it needs some adjustment between now and 7 years from now, just with the normal growth. We should implement some driver feedback radar signs. I'm sure you have those in the town right now. And we need to construct two lanes through. We need to construct two lanes through what we're calling Memorial High School Drive, all the way through to help with the queuing issue. But we're also allowing cars to come in off of Farm Street, not off of Hemlock. So those vehicles need to be able to pull in, quickly turn right, populate that parking area. And the preference would be to have those parking spots identified in issue, so that we're not having people compete in that area. But we have to manage the on-site internal circulation, and Aaron and I have had several discussions on how we're going to do that, including where we're placing the buses. As I had mentioned, I just mentioned this: the designated drop-off areas, designated number of parking spaces, and there might be an opportunity to further change starting times between the high school and the Metro Tech. So that was sort of the Reader's Digest version. I'm here if you have any questions. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I think that's excellent. I tend to agree. The more I see the concept for the roundabout, I think that's a good concept for the school, and just for what we kind of have planned with Farm Street in general. My only question would be: so you were talking about the traffic volumes were at about what, 1,400 a day? Is that what it was?
No, the daily volumes, I think they were 12,000 on Farm Street. 12,800 is
So
my.
1,400 was at what, the peak hours for school?
No, peak hour. Oh, the 1,400 that I was speaking of is on a particular segment of a rotary. Once you exceed 1,400, you start potentially having diminishing returns and may need to add a second lane.
So because of the additional lanes, you don't think that would be a concern?
No, I don't. I think we've had good experience with that, especially because really the additional lane is that southbound through lane, and it's a shared lane because you can take the right onto Nahant, or you can continue Farm southbound towards Route 1, while the other vehicles are taking the left turn into Hemlock. So we feel that is it's a safe and convenient method.
I think that a roundabout is it's a great concept. I like the idea of the rapid flashing beacons and the kind of the known crossing points for students that are walking to school. I receive a lot of calls concerned about, new drivers, the kids walking to school in the middle of what's currently a bad situation and has been for many, many years there. And it's kind of only getting worse with time. And I think that, my priority to them would be to do just what you've proposed to us, realign the intersection, construct a roundabout. I think if both projects, both schools are developed the way that we just talked about today, I think we would see a huge return on the traffic calming end of things with Farm Street. I think Farm Street would be a totally different road from what it's been for the last 20 or 30 years. And, to your point, we're never going to eliminate traffic crashes, right? It's just never going to happen. But what we can try to hope for is to reduce the severity and the seriousness. So some people might be a little bit concerned about new drivers navigating a roundabout. On my end of it, I think they're going to be more cautious to navigate that roundabout. And yeah, there may be a couple of fender benders here or there, but I think that's far better than the current situation where you have speeding cars coming down Farm Street, a lot of turning movements in a short distance with no real alignment to the intersection. That to me, when you add the speed and new drivers and some limited visibility and all those factors, also creates the dangerous situation for new drivers. Fender bender here or there for navigating a roundabout. I would take those odds over what we currently have. Yeah, I appreciate the presentation. I'll turn it over to Bill.
Hey, David, thank you for the presentation. I'm also a fellow Husky, so go Huskies. So my big question that I had was on the double lane in the roundabout. We have the larger of the two parking lots is really off of Farm, right? So people would be taking that left-hand turn, I'm assuming, to get into the site unless your site circulation is sending everybody onto Hemlock. So I was a little confused on that piece because, personally, I'd rather see one if we could. So, I think your site circulation and kind of how that's all going to work really impacts how you'd want to design that.
Mm-hmm. So two things, Bill, on that. Number one, the traffic signal, if we went to a traffic signal, the traffic signal left-hand queue would back up through that intersection.
Okay.
That's a real problem, right? Then we don't have gaps to select, etc. That's number one. Number two, that coming in and out, we're allowing to service that one area, and that's why I had mentioned that we don't want people just circulating in there, that we feel like those maybe should be assigned spots, and we would have internal circulation in a one-way direction. They'd take an immediate right when they came in, and then they could only go in that one direction and then park accordingly, so that it would circulate, and only those vehicles that that had a specific reason to go there would be going there.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe I'm misspeaking. So I'm thinking so folks are coming from Farm, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like down Farm from Water. With that parking lot there, would there be more of a left-hand turn there?
Let me just go back to that slide.
Yeah, that's what jumped out at me.
If I can just jump in, Bill, I hear what you're saying. So how we've proposed the circulation, and we've been working with the district on this, is that you're right in that the parking will likely be accessed from the curb cut on Farm Street, but all of the parents and buses dropping off are going to come onto Hemlock and enter the site from that curb cut.
Sure.
I think we can, so I was actually thinking about this, we can study this further. And I think ideally we would have a single lane roundabout. I don't know if there's an opportunity to come back with an actual design of the roundabout to get that approved with this commission. I guess I'm jumping ahead a bit.
No, I think that makes a ton. I think it makes a ton of sense, Aaron. I'm just thinking, if we're doing it for the full capacity, because most folks are going to come in right now the way they come in. So if you're going to kind of change the distribution on how it gets into the site, you may be able to drop that other lane. That was my only thought. So.
Yep.
Oh, I'm understanding, Bill, what you're saying right now.
Yeah, I think I
I'm sorry.
misspoke. I think I
didn't-
said Nahant instead of farm, so that's probably what it was.
Yeah, so just in general, just, so off of Hemlock, this is one way, all the way in 2 lanes, and that's what I was saying, and then 2 lanes all the way out. And if you came in off at this location, you would be forced to take a right turn, circulate this parking lot, and only be able to circulate in a counterclockwise direction. Everybody up in this area, the buses, the loading would happen here and then go out. So, yeah, I mean, we can tweak that certainly and have some discussions. I'd be more than happy to sit down with you and have that discussion. But and the thought process is that up in this particular parking area, those would be assigned spaces, potentially, because we're concerned about creating just too many conflicting movements.
Gotcha. Yeah, so I just think kind of understanding that will make a difference, I think, on your roundabout design and how you want folks coming in. That's my only point. So I think you did a great job with this. Thanks, folks. Thank you for also listening to our comments. I appreciate that.
Mr. Mayo.
Great presentation. Thank you very much. You mentioned the assigned spaces in the Farm Street entrance parking lot. You're talking those are most likely going to be teachers? Is that the thought process? Because
Steve,
and the reason why I bring that up is I think they'll be more spread out when they come in. You know, teachers are going to get there, and administrators, they'll get there a little bit earlier, I would think. And then you'll have the students will come, all in at the same time. So I wasn't sure what you were thinking there.
what we'd propose is to have all of the spaces numbered, and then administration would, work with the numbered spaces and provide kind of assigned spaces to teachers and students accordingly. The goal is to have, to eliminate kind of cars wandering around the parking lots. If folks know they're driving to the site, they know where they're parking, and to eliminate some of that kind of.
I know it's a little farther away for the teachers, but it may, I mean, the way they arrive at school, usually the teachers are there, a little bit earlier and sporadically, not all at once. The other thing, to go back in the beginning of the presentation, when you talked about the bike activity or lack thereof on cold November times, I think we also need to keep in mind there in the future is that it's not only maybe it was cold on November day, but the infrastructure really isn't there safely right now.
Right.
Something that we're working on. So I think we'll see more. We'll also see more of it because I think there's a much greater awareness, particularly among our young people, about climate change and reducing our carbon footprint. And I think you will see more people utilizing that. So something to keep in mind in the flow, and providing bike racks and things like that I think are important in the plan. But really good presentation. Thank you.
All right, other comments from TAC?
Yeah, I just have a couple. I want to echo what Joe and Bill have said. I definitely like the roundabout concept. I had the same kind of question that Bill had about the left turns coming down Farm into that parking area. And just want to take a closer look at those numbers to see if there is a chance that we wouldn't have to have that second lane through the roundabout. Because if we didn't have that lane, we could shorten the pedestrian crossings and might not need multiple RFBs in the roundabout. So that's definitely something I'd like to take a closer look at. Also, as it relates to circulation, I don't know if this would happen, but if during drop-off time, if the queue would go back on Hemlock into the roundabout, that's definitely something we'd want to avoid, because that would just jam up the roundabout. Is there a contingency plan we could put in place on the school site to make sure that doesn't happen, in terms of just making sure the queue keeps moving and doesn't back into the roundabout. It doesn't seem likely that would happen, but I think it's worth just having that contingency in place. But yeah, definitely a great presentation, very thorough study. I've had a chance to look at it, but not fully with all the information that's in there. So I'm just going to take I'll have a look at it, and I'll definitely let you know if I have additional questions.
All right, anybody else from TAC or the town? I will open it up to public comment. If you could raise your hand. Any public comment on Wakefield Memorial High? All right, I'll turn it back to the developers for any closing comments.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I think for us, we'd like to, this being our first TAC, what are our next steps?
Yeah, I had a couple of notes. Maybe we would receive some formal comments from the town or Matt. I don't know if a working session would be helpful. And then if there is a formal approval by you all that the project would need to receive on the traffic improvements and offsite work.
Bill, what are your thoughts? You want to provide some type of memo about what we discussed, and then maybe could do a working group on it?
Sure. Yeah, I'll draft that and the one for the tech as well. Matt, what I'll do is I'll draft it. I'll just send you if you want to take care of the other ones from today.
Yeah.
I'll do those two and flip it your way for comments if you want to add anything to it.
Sounds good.
All right. And yeah, so I think action items on your end though would be to try to look at that, the internal parking circulation and seeing if we're expecting more folks coming on farm from water to be getting into that parking lot and taking that left-hand turn. So there may be a need to actually look at, a little bit further down farm to add a left turn lane or something to that effect. So we just want to kind of have all that covered.
Okay, sounds good. Anything else from the development team before we conclude?
I don't think so, unless Lynn, you have anything to add? I think we are set.
No, I'm just concerned with what our next steps are, like you said, and when we can get a formal approval of the approach once we get there.
Well, we need more information and then we'll get you the approval. So yeah, I think we got next steps covered. So we'll get you a comment memo. You guys will revise based on the comment memo. I'd imagine you probably want to come back to the TAC in November, and as long as everything's addressed, we're good to go. If you need follow-up or a meeting with myself or tagging Matt in, I'm happy to do that, obviously.
Bill, I just have a question on the timing of it. So overall, the project right now is finishing up schematic design, and we're going to have our submission to the state and associated meetings with the school building authority.
Yeah.
And then we'll pick up. So more or less, the design team will be on hold until the town votes are successful, and but our work won't start until maybe March of next year. So do you expect to kind of close up this issue now, or is this something we can pick up once we start the next phase of design?
I mean, I think we're happy to close it up. I don't want to speak on behalf of the TAC, but I mean, from all the comments you received, you're not getting a lot of them. So, we gave you some kind of pointed, questions to answer. And then from there, I mean, I think we can technically box this up by next meeting in November.
Yeah,
I would hope to.
I would agree.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything major.
Thank you.
All right, so Bill, we'll get you some comments, and we will meet with you again in November, and I'll send out that meeting date when we have it set, and I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, at 11:19, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the traffic.
Can I throw a couple of things in? I'm sorry.
Tried, Bill, I tried so hard.
Wow, at 11:19, he's telling you that and more things. I love it.
I had to unmute myself quickly. Just a couple of things. If you could look at, I sent something over, request for sidewalk at Nahan Street in Mount Pleasant. If you could
I already have that evaluated and looked at. It's in your ARPA package.
Oh,
yeah, with the price to do it. Yep.
For the crosswalk, I mean.
Yeah, we were gonna do crosswalk and sidewalk on that side, so
great.
that all those
Thank you.
neighborhoods.
So
would
I,
fall
so
into the
you're telling me I should have read what you sent me instead of just.
That's what I, well, nice.
Okay, all right. Also, we had Wakefield 101 last night, and there was some questions about the lack of sidewalks on the, I would say, the southerly side of Prospect Street, going up towards. So if we could take a look at that at some point.
Yep.
All
For
right.
sure, yeah. We're looking to pave that. I mean, gas company just finished their work this year. They have services
Exactly.
to do next year.
That's
So it's
what I
about 2
thought.
years out for us to reconstruct it anyway. So that would be when we do all that.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for letting me jump in, by the way.
Oh, no problem. Can you second my motion?
I'll second it now. Yeah.
Yeah, now he seconds. There you go.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
All right,
Thanks, folks.
everybody. Thank you.
Have a
Thanks,
great
everybody.
weekend.
Have a good weekend.